Members of the public are welcome to attend. We're going to go ahead and have our roll call.
All right. Commissioner Jiggets,
Present.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Here.
Commissioner Morgan,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts, Commissioner Washington,
Present.
Vice Chair Chapman,
Present.
and Chair Smith. We do have a quorum.
All right. All right, number 2 on our items of list on our agenda is the approval of the Commissioners' meeting minutes for February 5th, 2019, for our special call meeting minutes. Do you have any questions or amendments to those? All right, Chair, do you need a motion?
Motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
A second.
All right, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chapman.
Yes. All right. We're going to go with our old business at this time. Oh, nothing, all right. Let's go with our monthly financial report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before you have the financial statements for ending December 2018. The federal programs, as outlined with the Central Cost Center, Swanson, Lincoln Park, which are still our public housing, and the HCD program, those represent 6 months worth of operation. And then all the partnerships are at 12 months. These are still all unaudited. I'm still got about three more audits that need to be to the auditor by the end of the week. So they look,
Section 3.
everything looks pretty intact. I went over with Mr. Lalonde today. We have a few areas where some of the budgets and the variances are substantial, and that's because we did a lot of replacing flooring at quite a few of the properties. We had some roof damage. It's because of the big windstorm during the summer. So there was a lot of that. But the offset because of the insurance company not paying for the full, because of the deductible. The only thing that really was a significant change was the HCD program netted a loss slightly for that month, and that's just because we did some absorbing, which was paying out more HAP expenses than what we got in from the federal government, and then also because they're asking us to decrease our reserves still. So other than that, we're doing pretty well.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank you for the larger print. Oh, God, that is so refreshing.
Here. I'm with you on that one.
Thank you. God. I got new glasses, but this is really great. So, this is
I
really
also
great.
heard about my meeting.
Yeah, but the other question is, you said something about the insurance not paying something, and is that something that we didn't foresee, or is that the normal deductible, or what's going
Yeah, it's
on?
just the normal. They don't ever pay 100%, so we do have to use the deductible, and I believe it's a pretty large. Most of the sites.
Okay. Thank you. But I'm really
Just to tack on to what Shannon had talked about, we met today. And first of all, I want to start off by saying her staff is really working hard. And Mr. Bland, I appreciate the support you're giving them, but just from a personal standpoint, they are under a lot of pressure right now with the HUD audits that they're doing, and they're now looking to change auditors, which we're going to talk about later. That's going to put a lot of pressure on that financial staff. And as y'all know, that's the primary responsibility this board has, is to help oversee the finances. I just want to make that comment that there may need some cavalry needed to support what efforts they're doing right now. So, I mean, they're late hours, long hours, weekend hours. And it's so thin now, if any of them just start coughing, I start worrying. All right, so just to let y'all know. Did talk to Mr. Bland and Shannon, and it looks like they're going to put on the agenda for next month to look at the investments that we have here at PRHA, and how if we can get any better performance on the investments. We talked about the audit. But I want to highlight just a couple things off the sheet she gave. One of the things that's important about financials is you can look at the number, and if you examine the number, it kind of tells you, hey, a problem that's operational. Hamilton, even though it had a profit, there is some issues with water out there, water and sewage out there at Hamilton. So just be aware, there's no cause and effect. We had that mold issue, I'd like to think, I tried to drive her that there was a cause and effect. They assured me that it's not, but anytime I see a water sewage bill go up, it's going somewhere, right?
Show me, I don't see that, Mr.
In the words of the first page, she has down there, Hamilton 1 had a profit, Hamilton 2 had a slight loss, than normal because of the water sewage usage. But
Okay.
they're assuring me it's an equipment problem, it's not anything else in that. But, and then I guess it was also Hamilton that had, I guess, other repairs that you're doing to Hamilton that drove down, so I really appreciate that. But, and I did ask Shannon, I'm sorry to ask, and Mr. Blank, where are we with the Swanson reimbursements from the FEMA and the insurance claims?
We are still in a waiting, holding pattern. FEMA can't pay out the remainder of the funds until we get something from Allstate that says they're, going to pay us additional money or they're not going to pay us additional money. So FEMA will know how to respond. So I've been working trying to get that letter from them. They haven't said, no, but they haven't given me additional money in the past, maybe 7 or 8 months. So.
How much are we showing in that receivable?
It's still showing as a 3.2, but that is incorrect. And I'm
We got a little over $1 million
Yeah.
from Allstate.
And that's been 5 years? 4 years?
No.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
But not quite, it was in 16.
16.3.
Is there a decision is there a timeline decision that if we don't get it in 5 years, 7 years, we have to write it off?
Well, actually, Karen has also been assisting and speaking to someone at the insurance bureau to help see if, legally she can help navigate us through this process and maybe take some legal action if we don't get a response.
Legal action against FEMA or legal action against the
No,
insurance
also,
carrier?
also, no. FEMA's been also.
I have a question. It's feedback. For the future financial reports, if you could make sure the pages are numbered,
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. And secondly, when you have these variances, I looked for it, maybe I missed it. Do you normally include notes? Because I would like to see notations like with asterisk that explain, for example, with the, what was it, the variance under the operating expense, there was a $19,152 variance. And correct me if I'm wrong, our fiscal year starts in October, September 1st, October 1st, September 30th, which is it?
July 1.
July 1, July 1. I knew
Except
it
for the
was,
partnerships or calendar year.
it's July 1, okay, okay. There was one other thing I would want to see included. But any time you have like what I would call an anomaly, if you could asterisk and include a footnote, I would appreciate it.
And I also would like to add, with these insurance issues that continue to plague us, is it any way, and since our city council representative is present, this might be a bit premature, but the money that we spend helps the city when it helps us to do better in our service to the community. Is it any way that they could help us move this process in a quicker, I'm not asking for, this is kind of rhetorical, but just so you'll be aware, if there's some way we can get some help with these things.
You mean with Allstate?
Yeah, with Allstate. It would, yes, Allstate, it would be information about it, because this isn't, and I'm sure it's not the only time some aspect of the city needs insurance money from one of these companies, and they have to go after the money. we're a smaller organization than the city, so I'm sure that they might have had some experience with
And
that.
I think it's in the jurisdiction where it is right now. You have to be an authorized person to go in and speak on that behalf, and I think your attorney and your directors are the appropriate people to handle that.
And we are, it's just that you gotta wait for the time, you just gotta wait for the timeline. But we got procedures in place, been working with them for some time. We have outside,
We have a public adjuster.
a public adjuster.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, we have
great.
outside public adjuster, yeah. So to add another layer would be more confusing.
Right, right, maybe this is not the right time. I'm just thinking, I guess I'm thinking strategically and long-term with some of these issues, because we have issues, and not just our organization, but other organizations that plague our city in terms of resources. If we don't have resources, I want to support Bruce on this, we can't do our business. And then the other thing I would like to say is, any kind of advance help, I hear that, I receive that, and whatever you feel or they feel in terms of needing that support, so that we can be clear on these notes, or clearer. You're doing a great job. No disgruntled there. It will help us to be more effective to the people that we serve in our great city. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? All right, we're going to move on to procurement.
Okay, point of order before we move from the financials. Even though it's good, we don't vote on them, but we should read into the minutes that we will file them for audit review with the Secretary Treasurer. That's according to Robert's rules. That's how we would do it.
We don't file for audit with Secretary of Treasury. We are a housing authority. We have an independent auditor that comes in to look at a book, but we don't file with the Secretary of Treasury, not housing authorities.
Okay, well, let me say this. In your bylaws, you are listed as the Secretary Treasurer. And as such, the financials come under your purview by way of the person who reports to you. Now, let me finish. Certainly, we don't want to vote on them, but we want to have them filed with the Secretary Treasurer, because it is through you that the annual audit report, they, being the CPA, will confer with you on all of the financials that have been provided on the monthly interim basis. So as such, we're not doing a vote. We're just saying that they will be filed with the Secretary Treasurer for audit, and that is an accurate statement. If you read that into the minutes, I would appreciate it, Vice Chair.
If I can, before we do that, if I ask a couple of questions. Number one, I think that these financials are just something we pull together, correct? These are not filed with anybody, not sent to auditors at the end of the year.
No.
They look at an entire year's worth of whatever our books are. So this is more for informational purposes on a monthly basis, just to keep us advised of any things that the staff feels are maybe out of whack. So you don't get the audit at the end of the year and say, oh my God, we didn't know about this.
Okay.
And I think, and again, while I understand your point, the one thing I would say is that, given what Commissioner Lalonde said about their overworked, I think the less pressure we can put on them, I think this is just more of an advisement, and when we get the annual audit, that will really tell us what we really need to know.
So unfortunately, that is not an accurate statement, because when auditors come in at the end of the year to do the annual audit, they pull all financials. Those that come to the monthly board, they will pull those also. They will pull the minutes, they will pull the financials. So I stand by my statement. These financials are not audited financials, and we clearly agree on that.
Well, I will say this too, that previously that this has been a relatively new thing, I think, where we're presenting these financials on a monthly basis. I think previously we present maybe one or two properties or something of that nature, so we don't have full financials every month. So I think, again, it's, but
I hear you. I hear you. But as I've said, these are financials that we have, and anytime we're gonna see financials, we understand they're not audited financials at all. But in what we call in decency and in order, they will be filed with the Secretary Treasurer for audit, because when the auditors come in, they will audit for everything that has occurred for the previous 12 months. And they will have access to the minutes, everything that is disseminated to the commissioners, as well as in-house staff.
So Secretary Treasurer
Being-
/ Executive
Executive,
Director, because he's the,
That's correct. And
Yeah.
he is defined in the bylaws.
Ms. Bland, is that old, what's your, what you want to say?
I mean, it's honestly.
Because we're turning it over to you, we really are turning it
Well,
over to you.
it's always turned over to him.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
customarily in all boards that I've been on, whenever there's a presentation of a financial report, either the treasurer or the chair said the reports will be filed for audit. And
Yeah.
it's just saying that we're gonna put them aside, saying that we looked at them and we are putting them in a group for the audit to review whenever
right.
that time frame comes up, so.
That's
And I'm
correct.
sure you are reviewing them. Am I not correct in
Yes.
saying
Yes.
that, Mr. Bland?
I look at them prior to the board receiving.
Yes,
Okay, so,
so it's just
And
customary.
that is the way, and thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate that. Yeah, because that is correct. Now,
all right. And as, maybe we just need to say, we don't need, I don't think we need to, we won't vote on it, but from
It's not a
henceforth
vote.
forward.
You just say that it's be filed for.
Filed
We will be filed for.
So the financial, so the financial reports will be filed for
audit with the Secretary Treasurer. who is
Slash.
executive.
You don't have to say.
You don't have to say it, because he's defined in the bylaws for PRT.
I'm happy, I'm happy. Thank you.
All right, procurement.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You have received in your package and a handout a copy of the procurement policy. I want to state a little bit about, some of you have had some familiar with our procurement procedures here, others are not. We are a HUD finance agency. All of our funding comes from HUD. So we have to follow federal procurement regulations at 2 CFR 200. In addition to that, if HUD is silent on anything, we have to follow the state procurement regulations at the Virginia Public Procurement Act. But for the most part, we follow the HUD regulations. They even gave us a great handbook, the HUD 7460.2 Revision 2 handbook, where HUD tells us how we're supposed to do our procurement. So the fun part about this is, because we are HUD funded, if we still have to be follow federal, but in times when HUD is silent or it doesn't, we have to look to see what's most stringent. We have to look at the state. So we have the fun task of trying to figure out which one is the most stringent in times when HUD is not totally clear on an issue. So that makes us, we're different than most localities or state agency, because they just follow the Virginia Public Procurement Act. We follow HUD regulations and then the VPPA when necessary. So you will see that in our procurement policy. Our attorney a few years ago went through the great process of merging the two documents, determining what was the most stringent, so that we can follow. We make sure we are in compliance, and we review this every year, because every year there are some new guidelines and changes. And so I just want to give you all that information for the procurement policy that you've received. I do want to say we don't receive any state funds, so of course the state doesn't come and audit us. However, HUD does, and so if we're going to err in any way, we're going to err on the side of the HUD policy, because they're the ones that control the gold, and that's what we do. And they do come in and look at our procurement every year as part of their audit. This seems like this agenda is a procurement show. Let's get it on the road, okay? The first item I have is, we did a request for proposal 2815 for wide area network, WAN, internet and telephone services for the authority. We're actually looking to upgrade our infrastructure, as well as our internet and our telephone services.
Okay, one moment, because it's not in that order, so that.
Oh, it's the second one.
Right.
Yeah.
And we
That's
changed
the
that
okay.
because,
Right.
And it's
we have a
in the
staff, it's number 2, it's the second
It's the
procurement.
second bullet.
Yeah, the second one, okay.
Yes, we're gonna
And in
start
your
with
book,
that.
and in your book,
Yeah,
it'll
that's the
actually
one I'm looking for.
and under your fourth tab is the second item, 2905, 2019-05.
Right. You got it.
Mhm.
And I requested that that be moved because we have a staff member here who has to leave, and I just wanted, he is our IT manager, and this is his bailiwick, and if there are some technical questions, we wanted to ensure he was here to answer them. But we wanted to, so we put out this request for proposal so that we can upgrade our systems and move in with the new fiber wave that's going on now. We have 2 providers for our WAN and internet now, Cox and Windstream. And for our telephones, we have a different company, Viacom. So when we issued this RFP, we put it out so that we could, in lots, so that the offerers could respond to lot 1, which was the WAN and internet, or lot 2, which was the telephone, or they could do both. So most of the organizations chose to do both. We did have one company that just did telephone only. We advertised in the Virginia Pilot Journal and Guide with EVA, which is our state electronic procurement website, which is where we normally advertise all of our solicitations, and on our website. Over 2,000 firms were notified that the package was out there, and we received 4 proposals in. They were due in September on the 6th, and the 4 offerers were Cox, Virginia Telecom, Executive Systems, Granite Telecommunications, and Windstream. Our evaluation committee reviewed the proposals, and based on the scoring for lot 1, Cox Virginia Telecom was the high score. For lot 2, which was the telephone only, Cox also was the highest score. One of the advantages that Cox had was Cox agreed to update our infrastructure, bring it up to fiber at no cost to the authority. And in addition, their pricing was lower because other entities would have to go to a Cox or a Verizon, so there was additional cost, whereas Cox is the actual provider. So it was very difficult for the other providers to beat them cost-wise. And Cox is also the provider of those services for several housing authorities in this area, as well as across the and local private, as well as public entities. So we had our evaluation committee, which was our IT manager, the assistant, our deputy executive director, and we had another staff member, a compliance officer. I like to have sometimes someone that's not involved in a particular area to serve on the committee so that they have a fresh perspective. And based on the scoring, the preliminary scoring, 2 of the firms didn't even, one of the firms didn't even make the competitive range, Granite Telecommunications. So once they don't make the competitive range, we don't even look at them price-wise because it doesn't matter if their price is the lowest, if technically they can't do the job.
Right.
So the committee recommendation is that we move with Cox, contract with Cox to provide all 3 services, the WAN, the internet, and the telephone services.
Question. Is there anything that would allow us to stipulate that there be a set-aside portion for minority providers?
We always, when we do our solicitations, there is a solicitations are for RFPs, requests for proposals, are point-based. So there's a point for minority business or women-owned businesses, and we also have a point for Section 3 businesses. Section 3 businesses are HUD requirement. And so we give points, so we request that, and the respondents submit their plan as part of their proposal, and they are given points based on what they submit.
Did Cox have any submission for points for the minority?
They did, I can't say because I can't remember what their points was in that area. But
Curious to know.
they averaged, the fact that they averaged 92 points out of the 100 makes me think that they probably did have some, but I'm not sure what it was.
Well, Mr. Blaine, if you're able to get back and provide an answer for that, I would appreciate it. Because it could be vague.
But we cannot require it. HUD does not allow us to require. The only thing HUD asks us to do that HUD mandates is Section 3. And Section 3 is to the greatest extent feasible if a contractor is going to have any new hires or training opportunities as a result of receiving a contract from us, then they have to give us an opportunity to provide them with qualified workers based on their job description that may be able to fill their need. And as far as HUD encourages us to do MBE, WBE, but we can't require our offers to do it. That's why we use the points. So if they don't do it, they don't get the points, and it may make the difference between them receiving an award or not receiving an award.
Yes, you've been clear on that, but I specifically want to know if they did receive any points in that area.
I understand what you're saying, but keep in mind, we gotta follow the HUD guidelines.
I'm not disputing the HUD guidelines. I just want to know, for informational purposes, did Cox receive any points in that category?
Is that the pleasure of the full board to want to know that?
I'd move approval of the resolution as presented.
On readiness on the resolution motion, and I would like to be provided information. Maybe the full board doesn't want it, but I, as an individual commissioner, understanding that HUD doesn't require it. But what harm would it do to just know if Cox, who you all have scored very high, if they got any points in that category?
We can pull that out for you.
Thank you. I didn't think it would be a problem. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move forward with the resolution.
Now
It's a motion.
Motion?
Oh, I'm thinking.
I second the motion.
All right. So noted. Secretary.
All right, Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chapman. I'm sorry.
And with that motion, I'd like to thank IT for fixing my phone email this week. It was miraculous. Golly gee, I'm telling you, they found email that I didn't even want to see anymore. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going forward with resolution 2019-04.
And everything else will
Yeah,
follow
for
in
the first one.
accordance with what's in the, what's on the
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. The next item is our request for proposal 2018-14 for independent audit services. We issued a request for proposal for independent audit services to select an independent auditor to conduct our annual financial and compliance examination of our financial records, and that is a HUD requirement. My current auditor is Jump Perry and Company. They're out of New Jersey, and this RFP was issued back in June. We advertised not only in our locally, such as the Pilot and the Journal and Guardian on EVA, but we also advertised on CLAPA, which is the Council of Large Public Housing Authorities website, and FADA, the Public Housing Authorities Director Association website. We went out nationally for this solicitation. Over 5,000 firms were notified about the package, and we had We had 4 firms respond. The proposals was due back on September the 7th. Cherry Beckert, Cone Resnick, Lutz and Company, and Rabina and Company. Cherry Beckert and Lutz and Company did not make the competitive range. They really didn't have much in the way of housing authority experience. And we had 2 companies, Cone Resnick and Rabina, who work with housing authorities across the country. Due to the nature of this solicitation, we had our evaluation committee was our Director of Finance, our Deputy Executive Director, and the Executive Director. Preliminary scores was done to see which firms made the competitive range. They had to score a minimum of 56 out of the 80, and it was only 80 points because the last 20, which is price, is scored by me after I do my price analysis. Only those that made the competitive range move forward to the price consideration. Cone Resnick was, we actually did, for this one, we did interviews. We did in January of this year. We had, one of the firms came in, Cone Resnick. The other one we did through online, through a web chat with the firm. So that's why we have this great technology here, so people don't have to necessarily have to travel like they used to. Cone Resnick was selected as the most qualified firm to provide these services because basically they scored they were very similar technically until during the time when we were conducting the interviews, Rabina lost a very important staff member, the person that put together the proposal on their behalf, who had 25 years of housing authority experience, and that person was not replaced. So that really impacted their experience number because they lost the person that would have been leading our team here at PRHA. They left the company, and but Cone Resnick provides these services for housing authorities all over the country, including Charleston, Dallas, and Port Arthur, and also private entities such as Penrose and Homes for America. So based on a selection criteria, the Housing Authority recommends that we enter into a contract with Cone Resnick for the independent audit services.
No questions?
I'll make the motion to approve, but I did want to just notate that Mr. Bland had, I think, spoken to this in an email to me, that Cone Resnick provided, I can't remember if it was cost certification or appraisal services for Dale 1, which was used by the private investor, which I'm pretty sure is where Penrose came from, but did not see any kind of conflict with that stuff. But just wanted to make that known.
How long is the contract for?
It's once for 1 year with 4 annual renewals based on the Housing Authority's sole discretion.
And let me just add, HUD like to see Housing Authority change auditors, because our last audit, we had almost 10 years, I believe, quite a while. And HUD really like to see fresh eyes come in. And it was time for us to do a change to it. Our president has been with us for well over 8-9 years. And the one that we got before you have a lot of experience working with a variety of different housing authorities across the country, from large housing authorities to medium to small housing authorities.
I have a question. The previous auditor, did they respond?
They did not.
Okay, and then my other question is, and this is probably not what HUD requires, but on the citizen side, and thinking about all of the CPA firms in this area, and only Cherry Beckert responded out of all, how was it, maybe 5,000 firms? They actually received that they proposed that the RFP was out there. Right, they were notified, is what you're saying. And personally, I am a big proponent for doing business with companies that have a local connection, because it does create jobs. And I understand from what I'm being told today about the HUD regulation, but it is a concern. It really is a concern when we look at where the other 3 respondents are based out of. And I firmly believe in rising tides lift all ships. So that is just my concern. And of course, if there are ways that the commissioners creatively may think of a way to provide more penetration to get the notices out to more than the 5,000 to try to enhance our opportunities, or greater opportunities to have those responding who actually may be CPA firms in this area who have HUD experience. I don't know. But I put that out there as my concerns concerning the procurement policy as it pertains to HUD and the respondents.
Well, Housing Authority audits are very specialized
Yeah,
area.
I'm finding that
And there are
out.
very few firms in the country that that perform audits for Housing Authority. That's why you will see a list of these auditors that work with Housing Authority that will have 30 or 40 Housing Authorities as their clients, because this is a specialized area of audits.
And at one time, was there not a relationship, I think, between Resnick and Rubino? Or am I mixing this up with someone else?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Their proposals did not indicate any type of relationship.
Okay.
My curiosity has gone up in terms of if there were a conflict of interest because they did the phase 1 and phase 2 in the subdivision.
Well, just to kind of clear up, I just wanted to make sure, because typically, but what Cohn Resnick did on that project was really just certify that the costs provided by the contractor for Dale were appropriate and in line. And I think they also maybe provided some valuation services. So I would assume that if they felt it was a conflict, they would notate it as well. But I just wanted to make sure that it was something we had thought about, and Mr. Bland did not think it was a conflict, so I was fine.
But I can also attest that Jump reached out to Cohen Resnick and wanted
Speak up a little bit.
Our auditor at the present time, Jump, reached out to Cohen Resnick and asked for more additional help on the cost cert, because once it leaves their hands, then Jump has to do some stuff to get some 8609s out to VHDA. So they asked for their help as well, because they aren't as experienced with the
And if I
cost
can
cert
correct
side.
myself, I don't even think the cost certification was for us.
Right.
Or for the housing authority,
It's
it was for the permanent
authority.
lender
Right.
on the project. So it wasn't even for the authority, it was for a third party.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I make
please.
a motion that we accept resolution 2019-04 authorizing the execution of a contract for independent audit services between PRHA and Cohn Resnick LLP for audit
Second.
services.
All right. Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chapman.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm telling y'all are getting an education on all types of procurement today.
That's what we need.
We had, the first 2 were requests for proposals that the Housing Authority actually issued ourselves. The next 2 resolutions that I'm gonna bring before you are based on what we call cooperative procurement. And cooperative procurement is when another public entity issue a request for a proposal for a good or service or construction, and they have language in that proposal that allow other public bodies to purchase from their contract. And we get to take advantage of the economies of scale of them serving more people. So whereas we may buy 10 or something, if there's a break in price if you buy 100, 1,000, or 10,000. So when we use cooperative procurement, that's one of the main reasons we do it, because we can get better pricing by we call it piggybacking off of another contract instead of issuing one ourselves. So the next item I have is for solid waste collection and transport equipment. We solicited a bid through cooperative procurement from Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems Inc. They're actually the local distributor of solid waste collection and transport equipment for trash trucks. They're manufactured by a company called Holmac Corporation. Holmac was procured through a request for proposals by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is actually a national public agency that does municipal contracting. They're actually formed under the Minnesota legislative statute that gives them the right to do that. They use cooperative procurement to set up contracts. They procure contracts for all types of goods and services that public entities may use, and we get to purchase off of them. In this case, we want to purchase a 2019 trash truck with a boom or cherry picker to pick up the bulk trash in authority-owned and unmanaged properties. And this is a replacement vehicle for our current trash truck that has seen its last days. So we did an independent cost estimate and looked at the prices of these trucks. They range from about $199,000 to over $200,000. Through Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems, we were able to get a price of $146,000. That includes a 5-year extended warranty. This is actually a firm that the city used to purchase, because that's where we went to get some information on where you get your trash trucks from, because as a housing authority, we don't normally purchase those.
Right.
And so the Portsmouth, Newport News, and a couple other local cities use the same contract to purchase off of. So based on our selection criteria, it's recommended that we enter into a contract with Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems for the provision of this solid waste collection and transport equipment, aka the trash truck.
I have a question.
Yes.
What did we do with our old truck? Were we able to trade, get any money for it, or
No.
it was just
Our old truck it was a surplus truck that the city had, and we've used it for many years, and it's rusting out, and it lived a good life.
I have a question. When you were describing the bid process for this Mid-Atlantic, was this another way of saying that this was sole source? Is that what you're basically saying? Because you didn't.
We sole source, but the contract that we're purchasing off of was a request for proposal that was put out, and it went through all of the request for proposal process.
So they're the only ones who responded?
No. They're the only ones that they have the contract. The Sourcewell, which was the originating entity, did a request for proposal. They actually did a national request for proposal. So they had many respondents that responded to their contract, and they went through the evaluation procedure just like we did in-house, but they went through it. And through that process, they picked Holmac, as well as they have some other entities that provide these types of services. But Holmac actually provides the type of truck that we're looking to buy, a PacMac with the cherry picker on it. So once a solicitation is competitively procured, if there is cooperative language in it, then other public bodies can purchase from it because it's gone through the competitive process. Yes.
Because I'm trying to understand, and I guess I still don't understand the reason there were not other companies listed that went through this process along with Mid-Atlantic, so that we could visually see that Mid-Atlantic at $146,000 was the better bang for the buck. So I think I'm missing something.
Because we didn't do we keep in our procurement file, we have to put in all the solicitation information that Sourcewell used. I also keep their evaluation results so that the bids, because we have to prove when our files are audited by HUD, when we do cooperative procurement, we have to show them that the contract we purchased off of was competitively procured. So we keep, just like in our regular files, we keep all our information on who responded, what their proposals look like. For competitive procurement, we get that from the people that we're purchasing off of. So I have a copy of their contract with Sourcewell. I have a copy of their RFP. I have a copy of their evaluation. told us. I have a copy of their advertisement, where they advertised it, and I have a copy of everyone that responded.
And
That's all part of that's all part of our procurement file that we use when we do competitive procurement. But we also do for all our procurement actions over the $3,000 minimum purchase threshold, we do an independent cost estimate. And our independent cost estimate, in this case, it was just going online, seeing what these things cost. Showed that the price that Sourcewell quoted is below what if we went and bought this retail would have been.
And that's where the piggybacking comes in.
That's why it's
You call
piggybacking,
it
because they've
piggyback.
done all the background work. All we have to do is just
select
buy
it.
off of their contract.
Right.
So in other words, they're the middleman.
They're the middleman. They've done the work, and we can just buy. They've already determined that
Ask it again.
this is one of this provider has the better price.
Yeah. So the source is out there, they did all the work for us, and all we have to do is do the competitive bidding.
We just have to make sure we document our files, that we have the required information that we need.
And this is just an instance of one situation where you can do that, and you can't do that in all the situations.
Sometimes you may find that when you look at the price, it may not be as, it's not a huge savings. And you might can get a better price. Very rarely does that happen, but most of the time, because they know that they're going to get a national audience, they're going to make their pricing very competitive, because they're competing against some of the major firms in the country that provides this type of goods, service, or construction.
So that's where the 5-year warranty comes in.
Well, the 5-year warranty comes in because we want to make sure if that truck breaks down during that 5 year, we have it that it's fixed.
Right.
And it's customary. And talking with the salesman, it's customary. Most entities do,
Okay.
because this is specialized equipment. Everyone can't work on that trash truck, and then it's parts.
Okay, and this is my final question. Was there any way to have provided the other cost comparison respondents price besides just Mid-Atlantic on this sheet for comparative purposes?
Because it's
Trying to
not
be
ours,
clarity.
because it's not our information,
Uh-huh.
we don't provide it on the sheet. However, what we have is everyone that's responded doesn't provide the cherry pickers. They may do front loaders, side loaders, or the other regular type of trash truck, but they don't provide this particular type of trash truck. But they have, and what they do is they have a price listing on the people that they enter into contract with. So it's not just this. They provide all kinds of trucks. They provide the trash cans. They provide any type of, this thing was a solid waste collection and transport equipment. So it's a ton of items on that listing of what that was provided through this procurement action.
Wow. Trash cans?
Because these companies specialize in solid waste equipment.
Fantastic.
So this truck will work with the current dumpsters that you
Well,
have at the moment?
Well, we're just doing bulk. This is for bulk trash only, so it's stuff that's
Oh,
pretty
that's
much
okay.
on this side,
On the curb.
mattresses, furniture,
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution as shown.
Second? Get rid of the trash.
All right, Commissioner Jiggets,
No.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chapman.
Yes. All right, moving forward.
Okay, the next item I have is, there's another cooperative procurement action, and it is for Ford Explorers. The authority solicited a bid from Sheehy Ford of Richmond through cooperative procurement for 2 Ford Explorers, one for the modernization department and one for the housing trust voucher department. Sheehy was competitively procured through a request for proposal from Chesterfield County and Chesterfield Public Schools. They are local government entities, not too far from us. Their procurement, their RFP was for vehicle, sport utility, and Ford Explorers. They had their cooperative language in their solicitation in accordance with the Virginia Public Procurement Act. because they're a local government entity, they had to follow the Virginia Public Procurement Act. And so, which allows the other public bodies to purchase from their contract and take advantage of their discounted pricing. These are also replacement vehicles for two vehicles that we've had in our pool for a while. They're starting to give us major issues. So when we contacted Sheehy Ford, they gave us a price of about $28,000 for each vehicle, which was below, about 13% below our independent cost estimate of $64,730 or $32,000 per vehicle. And that's based on Ford pricing. Sheehy has provided vehicles to Chesterfield County, which actually put up this contract out, the city here, and also we've used them in the past to provide us with vehicles. So based on the selection criteria, we recommend we enter into a contract with Sheehy Ford to purchase these two Ford Explorers.
Okay, question again, and let me commend you, because I can tell you've done a thorough job. And so I'm just trying to,
I understand.
at a snail's pace, come up to speed. So
Good for
charge
you.
it to my mind and not to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably already told us this with the other competitive procurement. I'm learning lingo. Was there a way to have made this a RFP instead of a competitive procurement?
Well, all of it's instead of cooperative.
Oh, yes,
If we-
like I said, charge it to me.
Yeah, we could have issued for something like this an invitation for bid,
Okay.
but we would find that the pricing would not be as good.
That would have went up.
The pricing would have went up because we're just buying two cars. We're not going to get the advantage of buying like a city and a school
Under the
system.
umbrella.
We have did an invitation for bid for PRHA. We're buying two vehicles.
Only.
Chesterfield County, Chesterfield Public Schools, did a joint procurement action. So they're adding to their fleet. So they got better pricing than we would have gotten on these vehicles. As a matter of fact, their pricing was less than these vehicles on state contract. They got better pricing than the state did when they did their invitation for bid for these Explorers.
Was there any way to piggyback rather for the fleet with the city of Portsmouth for this public school system?
Most of the time when localities buy these vehicles, we usually piggyback on another contract, an existing contract, because it's just the pricing.
No, I'm saying
It's because the
there
pricing.
was not one with the city of Portsmouth.
I don't know. Usually,
Portsmouth Public Schools.
I don't know because they didn't have one that I was aware that we could piggyback off of. And you have to realize you have to have the language in your solicitations. Everyone does not put the language in their solicitations that says that this is a cooperative procurement action and other public bodies may purchase from it. It's a statement that you have to put in your solicitation that allows other public bodies to purchase from it.
Okay, and again, I commend you. And again, on the personal side, when I see it going to Richmond, I have a problem with it. But thank you so much for being so detailed and compiling this information and for giving us this informational presentation. I do appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's what I try to do. I just
You do a great job.
13% below is significant. I'm trying to find
I'll make a motion
13%.
that we accept resolution 2019-07, authorizing the execution of a contract for sports utility vehicles between PRHA and Sheehy Ford of
We
Richmond.
need two.
Before we proceed with that, I just wanted to note that under most responsive quote down here, I'm just making sure I'm not misreading this, where it says previous experience by Mid-Atlantic Waste System,
Oh.
is that an error?
That's an error.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Saw that way.
So if we can make that correction.
I was typing.
That's fine.
Where is
That's
it?
fine.
Where is
I corrected it on mine.
Okay,
Mid-Atlantic
okay.
And the
Waste.
resolution is correct.
Okay, very good, okay.
So it should be Sheehy.
Instead of
Right.
Which department uses these sports vehicles?
This one, modernization, which handles all our construction and rehabilitation items, and our housing choice voucher, our inspectors.
Okay.
In this case, they're getting it. And one thing I want to say, we cannot have a local preference. Unlike cities that can have a local preference, we cannot, HUD does not allow us, it's against the reg, for us to have a local preference. So they said it stifles competition. But other local bodies can do that. And they can put language in there or give extra points if someone is a local entity. We cannot do that.
So you could not call the city of Portsmouth and say, do you have a fleet contract coming up that could be?
But with the pricing, but we got great pricing here.
But how do you?
We got, because we did an independent cost estimate, and it would have been $32,000 if we just went out and bought this vehicle. Whereas we got it for 28.
You got two.
We got two for 56,000.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. One for 28, two for 56. I got it.
I know we received a motion.
They may
Do we-
also have.
Second.
All right, Madam Secretary.
All right, Commissioner Jiggets?
No.
Commissioner Lalonde?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Washington?
Yes.
Vice Chair Chapman?
Yes.
And my last one is a different type of procurement action. It is called a joint procurement action. And so, joint procurement means that a group of public entities, we all join together, and we're named as the people who solicited these particular goods and services. So, in this case, we had a joint procurement action for Swanson Home HVAC systems replacement. And we received a bid from Centennial Contractors Enterprises for the replacement and installation of approximately, we're looking to replace about 150 HVAC systems in Swanson Home. Swanson Home has 210 units. About 60 of them were replaced due to the Hurricane Matthew flooding. So we want to upgrade the other remaining systems in those units. So their scope of work included replacement of the indoor and outdoor units, and they may have to modify lines, ducts, and other accessories that's necessary to complete the job. We have worked with Centennial in the past, and they've successfully completed several jobs for us, including one recently in Swanson Homes. Sourcewell did a competitive procurement through an invitation for bid, and this contract meets all federal and state procurement standards. We had to use a joint procurement action because the Virginia Public Procurement Act does not allow us to use cooperative procurement for construction services unless you're buying AstroTurf. It's the one thing that allows you to do cooperatively. So so we joined other public bodies, other housing authorities, cities, state governments in issuing this solicitation through Sourcewell for an indefinite quantity contract for construction services. And we were able to benefit from discounted pricing because there were so many of us involved in this solicitation. So we had estimated that the units will be about $3,500 each for 150 units, based on what we previously been paying. And Centennial came in under that. So we're recommending that we go to contract with Centennial for these AC unit replacements. We have Centennial have worked with the City of Norfolk, Newport News, Richmond Housing Authority. They are a general contracting firm, and they have, like I said, extensive experience working with this type of construction.
So this is an IDIQ that Sourcewell had already previously negotiated?
Right.
Was there any local sources that were under the IDIQ?
Centennial is a local firm.
Local, okay.
They're actually out of Newport News.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing with construction services. The Virginia law previously, before they said no cooperative procurement for construction services, they used to say you could do construction services through cooperative procurement, but it had to be with a firm within a 75-mile radius. So, so we have a couple of local firms that's on that has that contract.
So we're paying about $3,300 each for,
a unit.
which is about $200.
But this is for the units, and then because we want to get our units, buy them in bulk, and then now the actual installation may be a little bit more. We haven't, this is just to get the units in hand. So we'll probably do the installation in groups. We're gonna do like maybe 50 units here, 50 units there, 50 units here. So this is gonna be a long-term project. It's not gonna all happen within the next 30, 60, or 90 days.
And you have adequate storage space to house these units?
We don't have to store them. The contractors is responsible.
When they install them?
The contractor is responsible for the storage of the units. We required that. Because no, ma'am, we do not have storage space for those units.
So what's the top side of installation cost for these? After we purchase this, what are we gonna, they're costing us $3,300 to get them. And so installation, is that part of the cost purchase?
It's not the 33, no, the 3,300 is the units
Right.
themselves. The installation for the units will range from what, like?
Because the installation is dependent on the unit type, the unit size. Most of the units require some removing of kitchen cabinetry as well as some chases. There are some hidden line sets, so it's not a regular installation that you normally think of. So they're looking somewhere probably between I believe $3,500 to upwards of $5,000 per unit for installation, depending on the unit.
So 5,000 plus 33.
Potentially. Again, it's going to be based on which floor type, which floor plan, which model.
And where is this for again? Dale?
Swanson.
Okay, and you're saying this is one unit per resident house? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Man.
another thing,
How
they're
large
not
is the
making-
unit? What's the
They're-
BTU?
There depends.
Each
Some of them
unit.
they range from 1.5 ton to 3 tons. We have
Good.
These are not regular HVAC units either.
I bet
They
they're
are
not.
going to be 134, but these are based off of a hot water system.
Yeah.
So they're not a regular installation. These are a little bit unique in how they operate. As well as I said, there is going to have to be some removal of the water heater has to come out to make access. The chases have to be removed, as well as some kitchen cabinetry.
Does this bid come with a service contract?
No, that's what they're saying.
No, I didn't hear that. I'm asking.
we have the warranty because of the unit. The units come with the manufacturer warranty.
Which is how
Now
long?
it depends, I think, on what the warranty is for the HVAC system. But that's the regular manufacturer warranty. Now the installation, we always get contractors give us a 1-year builder's warranty for any type of construction that we have done.
The equipment's usually a 10-year limited warranty, usually on HVAC equipment.
I mean, geez.
It's expensive, but it has to be done. The Freon that's used in these units, 410.
I can't hear
The
you.
Freon that's used in these units are very limited now. So that's why we got to replace it at Swanson Home. For instance, if you replace Freon in your unit now with R22, you may spend a couple of $100. We're spending $800-900 just for Freon in these old units because it's very limited. It's hard to come by now because they're just not making it anymore.
Go ahead.
My basic concern, not that we have to do this, I understand we have to do what we have to do. My concern is these units are gonna be very expensive in those to put in these older properties. I mean,
Yeah.
But we still have residents there. We have
I'm not disagreeing with
it's not
anything.
going away anytime soon.
Well, no question, everybody wants to have AC.
And heat.
And heat, oh yeah, and heat.
They do both, yeah.
Yeah, they do both, but my
Yes.
concern is, I just see this visual of them when they go in, and I think I'm sorry, what's your name again?
It's Michael.
Michael. Mr. Michael, my concern is that when they go in and they got to take out the cabinets,
That's right.
and they got to take out the existing heating, is that correct?
It's remove
And
the water
the
heater,
wall,
Water
gas
heater and
street,
everything.
some
The
I can see this
walls.
end up being more
more expensive.
costly for us because it's going to be some things that are going to be coming out
Oh,
that is not going to go
so-
back in the way it's
The
supposed to.
pricing does include returning everything as it was, returning the cabinetry, returning any damage to drywall.
But that's
we
not
said
part
water
of this,
heater.
that is not, we're
That's
talking
not gonna
about
be
something
part
that's
of-
not even part of this contract.
it's
Yeah,
gonna
but
be bought
maybe we should
somewhere.
have this part of what we're talking about here.
Because if I'm hearing you correctly, the other part of the expertise is going to be someone who is versed in carpentry and all of the pulling stuff out part.
Yeah, but we're talking about something that's not part of this resolution.
Well, the
But this is
thing,
not part of this resolution, that this is a resolution just to buy the equipment. We
Yeah.
should address all those issues when we have the
But that's
proposal come
after the
before us.
fact.
yes, that is after the
Well,
fact.
no, we have to buy the equipment, because you gotta buy the equipment first.
But is it not possible, and I'm asking Michael because I don't know,
Sorry.
is it not possible to have had the contract as a one-stop contract where is the expertise for pulling out all of the
Right.
equipment that has to be pulled out is also part of the contract who will be put, because if I'm hearing you correctly, this is only for the one company who's going to take the unit there.
And leave it.
They're not going to pull anything out. Am
They
I
can,
correct?
they can do the whole job.
Yeah,
They can do the whole,
They can do the
job.
whole
They can do the
job.
whole job.
But on
Yeah.
this, they're not
We're-
yet.
The thing is, we're buying these units because they're failing. And we're already paying more than what we're estimating every time we have to bring somebody in to replace a single unit or
Story
two
around
units
life.
at a time.
This is also a joint
This is a
effort
joint
and a
procurement that
joint
we've
RFP
already,
and
we've been
procurement.
through the whole
So we
the
can't
IFB
include our
process.
own thing, whereas everybody else might not use the same company, correct?
They
We
might
should've-
not, no, and everyone doesn't, but,
But perhaps
this
we
is
should have done it
something we
differently.
choose.
Perhaps we should have done it differently. I'm just seeing a huge respect, because these new units might not be able to go in where the old units are.
We've already replaced 60 units.
They've been out.
So we know what we paid for those 60 units that we've already replaced.
These
From the same provider?
It wasn't from the same provider, but we replaced them
Same
through,
type of unit.
but so we know that pricing is reasonable.
I'm not
Because
question-
we've already paid it for a couple of years ago when we did those 60 units for the Swanson Home Rehab. So it's the same type of units, and that's why we're just bringing the other 150 up to what we've already put in, the 60.
I guess my final question is, with those 60 that you installed already, were there any problems getting them installed, tearing out the wall?
I did not have an issue. I was not here.
He wasn't here, no, we had no issues with that.
With that particular provider? It wasn't this
It
provider,
wasn't that provider.
So they did all the work,
the previous provider?
but this company is not gonna do all the work.
They are.
can.
They can do all the work.
can,
They
but-
are. We intend to use them to do all the work when we're ready to move to that. When we're ready to move to that area, to that.
So
you able to
once,
do that?
once they install them.
So we've already procured them.
Okay, you
We've
procure,
already procured them. We did a joint procurement action. So we did an IFB that we got pricing from a bunch of different
Invitation
firms.
for bid, I knew that acronym.
I'm sorry, yeah. Invitation for bid.
okay,
So, yes.
and you're gonna hopefully let them do it, so the cost is not gonna go,
Exactly, and it's good to use the same provider because we want them to install the units, and that when we know that they know these units, they're familiar with these units, they purchase these units, their installation and their warranty with the manufacturer are gonna go hand in hand because they are certified to install these units. So the intention is to have them do the installation also.
so you're not gonna need to come back to us and ask for
Yeah, they're gonna-
Installation
Once we know the price,
cost.
we
Yeah, you gotta
gotta
come back.
get the pricing,
Yeah, and I got one final question.
finalize it.
In terms of the insurance, since these will be in the provider's warehouse, will they be covered under their insurance until they actually deliver and install the unit? Or do we need to have a rider in case they have a flood at their property.
No, HUD actually has specific forms that our people have to use. Any type of contractor that is storing any type of equipment off-site, they have to fill out specific paperwork for that. It has to be in a licensed, bonded, and insured warehouse, and we have to receive documentation of that as part of the whole contract process. That's a requirement.
I'd move approval of the resolution as shown.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Jiggets?
No.
Commissioner Lalonde?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Washington?
Yes.
Vice Chair Chapman?
Yes. Thank you.
Need a glass of water.
Yeah, we take a break.
Oh, no, I said she.
All right, we have no business for housing. We're going on to development. We have a presentation by Jamie Fortin, President of the Communities Group.
Thank you. It's Jaime Bordonave.
All right.
Let me give you my business card so you can struggle looking at my name. And try to figure out how that's
Jamie.
Jaime.
Jaime, well, I blew that one too, didn't I?
It's a Spanish name. Okay. So Ms. Winston asked me to come and spend 10 to 15 minutes with you talking about the RAD program, answering your questions and concerns. And I've actually expanded the topic just a little bit. That's the one. Father John's 50th anniversary, okay. Put it in the full. And, okay. So I've actually expanded the topic a little bit because, well, first of all your public housing properties, you've only got one left that you haven't redeveloped, repositioned, and that's Swanson Homes. So Dale Homes, phases 1 and 2 were both RAD conversions. Lincoln Park was originally approved as a RAD conversion. There were reasons why it switched to a different solution. And then currently your 5 mixed finance projects from your Hope 6 program, those are currently going through the RAD conversion process. So that leaves only your Swanson Homes public housing site that still needs to be financially repositioned, unless I'm missing any. Am I missing any, Mr. Blaine? I got them all. All right.
And I'm sorry, tell me again the acronym for RAD. What does it stand for?
Yeah, RAD is the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program.
Okay.
We're transitioning.
Transition, okay.
So what is the situation nationwide with public housing? There's 1.2 million units of public housing inventory, and the program started in 1937 as a shovel-ready reclamation program after the Great Depression. And as you'll see in an upcoming slide, by 1980, 80% of the public housing that's already out there had been built. So all public housing is really quite old, except new things like Hope 6 and so forth that were done from the ground up. But the majority of public housing is 40 to 50 years old.
Absolutely.
And as you know, when you get older properties, things wear out, so they reach the end of their useful life, right? You're talking about air conditioners at Swanson.
Yeah.
Not people.
Yeah, not people.
You're talking about the vehicles that you need and so forth. So at the same time that the capital needs are getting higher because of the passage of time and wearing things out, Congress has been reducing the funding. And the primary funding that you get for that is called capital fund. So it's an annual grant. And on the left there, you see a typical housing authority over the last dozen years had gone down about 29% in the amount of capital funding in their grant per year. So your needs going up, your funding's going down. And what that causes and I have to give credit, I stole this from somebody else's presentation. If I can remember who it was, I'd give him credit. But so if you look at the capital needs, you know, one of the things you do in this program or any other program is you get a capital needs assessment done. Look at 20 years, you look at all the component parts, the electrical, the plumbing, the roof, the windows, the doors, the appliances, and you determine how many years before they need to be replaced, and what's it going to cost in those future years, right? So if you look at, and this was done for all of the properties that we're talking about so far, except for Swanson, you may have a capital needs study on Swanson. So if you look at, that's the number. Again, this was the total for a particular housing authority. I didn't run these numbers for you because I didn't have access to your studies on all of them. But if that's the total number for a given housing authority, and the green is the capital funding that they're getting, then what you have here is an unfunded liability, which means that you have things wearing out and you can't replace them, or you're patching them together, chewing gum, glue. So there's the map kind of showing you the history of the development of public housing starting in the 30s, and by the 1980s, 80% of it was there. So most of that housing stock of those 1.2 million units need to be addressed. HUD has put restrictions on your properties. They have declarations of trust that make it very difficult for those properties to function like normal properties where you can borrow against them and so forth. So basically you can't. And so HUD has tried to help, and Congress, with programs over time that would let you address your backlog of capital needs. The best one right now, the best one has been since the 90s, is the Hope 6 program, and you've got a successful Hope 6 program here. That's been replaced by Choice Neighborhood Implementation, CNI. And CNI is a good program. It's sort of just like Hope 6, but on steroids, because they made you to do even more things than you had to do under Hope 6. Choice Neighborhood, you have to address the housing, you have to address the surrounding neighborhood, you have to address education, and you have to have people services, which was a component under Hope 6 after 1998, I believe it was. They added the people component. So, but it's only enough money for about 4 or 5 grants a year, national competition. So although it's a $30 million grant, great to get if your project qualifies for it and you put the plans together. Both Newport News and Norfolk are finalists this year in the competition. There's only 4 finalists this year, so they'll probably both get funded, which is great. But those, you know, I know both of those pretty well, but I know particularly Norfolk. I got them their grant for a planning study, 2010, that was completed, and the actual planning was done in 2012, and the plan was submitted and accepted by HUD in 2014. And then they had to start another planning process to put the implementation application together. It's probably about $1 million effort to get a $30 million grant. But you go through the planning process, you know, so it's for a unique project. The only project you have left that could possibly qualify would be Swanson Homes. And you know, there are things you have to look at to see, could it be competitive? So that's the most. These are ranked. These are the tools you have, and they're ranked from the best to the least effective, which is doing what you're doing now, patching things, keeping it going, right?
Yeah.
Which I call business as usual. So the second best one is
business failure.
Yeah. The second best one is called Section 18, and that's run out of what HUD calls their Special Application Center out of Chicago. Now you have used Section 18 for for Lincoln Park. That's now being called Lexington Park. And to qualify for that, so under that, if you demonstrate the extent of your backlog of capital needs, you can demonstrate that it reaches a certain level, then you can get approved to demolish, and you can get tenant protection vouchers, so new vouchers added to your Housing Choice Voucher program. So that's, that's a good resource. Now, that's a very high bar of entry. So HUD publishes every year a list of what they call total development costs, TDCs, for every public housing area, every authority, every region. Here you're all collectively, actually you have your own, I think you're listed in that. Question?
One. No, go ahead.
Okay. And so for each building type, so if it's an elevator building, or if it's a walk-up, or if it's detached or semi-detached, there's a different price for that HUD calculates every year. And that's what they would allow to be spent in public dollars to replace the unit or build a new development. And so let's say that's $200,000 a unit, okay? Just to make up an example. To qualify for this approval, your backlog of capital needs, all the things that need to be done already. So I was doing the math on your HVACs and so on. You're getting a nice big number there, right? So that qualifies, right? If those are obsolete now, need to be replaced. But you need to get to, for a non-elevator building, that backlog of all your needs. So that's your terracotta waste lines underneath the buildings, and everything that's worn out needs to be replaced. Needs to be 57.14% of that total development cost. So do that in your head. What's 57% of $200,000?
$14,000.
Excellent. So that's a high barrier of entry. So although this is a very good program, it's open only to really distressed property, right? All right. Then RAD came out in 2012, Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. Congress authorized 85,000 units out of the 1.2 million on a competitive basis for applications that came in I think it was November of 2012. There were bonus points if it was energy efficient and using one of the green standards and so forth. But over time, Congress has opened it up to all housing authorities on a non-competitive basis, and currently the limit has now gone up to 455,000 units of public housing out of the 1.2 million can participate. There's authority for that many units to convert. So it's a really good opportunity. It applies to basically every project. And what happens there is you take the, let me go to the next slide. Let's see if it's the next slide. I'm going to have to figure out how to go backwards. So I'm sure you've had some training about your funding streams that come into the authority. You've got your operating fund, your capital fund, and then the tenant portion, right? That's the revenue the authority gets. Your accounting staff, Shannon, nice to meet you.
Hi.
We spent a lot of time on the phone working on some of your applications. And so what RAD has done is it takes this part of the money that comes in centrally to you every year through a grant. You don't know how much it's going to be. As I said, it's been declining. Last year and the year before, it actually went up, but that's very rare that it ever goes up. And they let you add that into your revenue stream. So instead of treating it as a centralized grant that you use to patch things up, it comes in as just like your operating fund. And then you can take that and move it over, convert it to a Section 8 voucher. So not at your fair market rents like you have in your current housing choice voucher program, but because it's a no new funding program. Congress did not authorize any new money for this program. But they let you take the money that you have, including the capital funds, put it under a housing assistance payment contract, and start out with the same amount of money. One of the nice things about it is that that's contractual. And you get an annual cost of living adjustment so that you know how much your funding is going to be. And it's going up by, on average, 2.5% to 3% a
Whatever
year.
the COLA is.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
it's called an OCAF, but yes, it's basically a COLA. Let's see if I can drive backwards now. Get back to where it was. Yeah. So that's rad, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Then mixed financing is what you did under Hope 6. So under that program, HUD allowed you to take public housing, because when you converted to Hope 6, your units remained under your annual contributions contract. So they're still public housing units, but they're in privately owned, privately managed. You happen to control the ownership entity, but so that's that's good. That allowed the introduction of tax credits into public housing redevelopment, which adds a lot of additional money, and but they're still subject to the funding streams that you get. So the capital fund, which is declining, the operating subsidy, which bounces around, and every year they may impose what is the term they call for it? Proration. So you give a budget, says we need $100 to run this, and they say, fine, we'll give you a budget of 100, and then we'll only let you get 92 cents of it. So good luck, right? And there was a reference, was it you, Shannon, who talked about it? That just like in your Section 8 program, HUD's going after, you got too much money in your reserves, they're going to start clawing that back, right? You know the term claw back. You're with Town Bank, right? So housing authorities that did really well and saved a lot of money and had good reserves, HUD goes, fine, we're going to claw that back. So once you convert under RAD, that's a contract. They can't claw back.
That's right.
And the reserves are not held at the authority, they belong to the project. And HUD cannot go in and claw those back either. So there are a lot of, even though it's a no new money program, there's a lot of advantages to it. And then there was a program called Capital Fund Financing. You didn't use that, did you? Capital Fund Financing, this was used by a lot of authorities, spent several $1 billion of public housing redeveloped with Capital Fund Financing. That revenue stream that you saw $144, right, per unit month. They could bundle that up and get an investment based on that future revenue stream. A very poor debt service coverage ratio, right? It was like 33%, right? Or 3 to 1 is the other way to look at that. So you could only borrow as much as you could make the payments on with 1/3 of your total capital fund grant. And then what you're doing, which is business as usual, which isn't very good. All right, so choice, highly competitive. The neighborhood has to qualify. The property has to qualify. It needs to be, to win, it needs to be partnership between the city and the housing authority. And it's expensive, and it's a long-term commitment and a long-term process. Yes, sir.
In the short thing, can you explain to them that when you talk about adjacent area around the project, you got to have site control?
Well, it depends. So you could, and it's like Hope 6, if you could redevelop everything back on the site, if the site was big enough, if you controlled land, or if you control land elsewhere, and you're doing some of your replacement housing elsewhere on land that you control, you would not necessarily need to have control of the neighborhood housing.
I'm speaking, for example, like, we have over, and you're familiar with the Dale and Lexington area, because you've been over there.
Oh, yeah.
And you see what's around it.
Yeah.
So Choice neighborhood would be kind of tough for that at this moment.
Well, I mean, give you an example. In Norfolk, they have an adjacent neighborhood, Huntersville, right, which is primarily an ownership neighborhood. And so part of their plan is they're going to do infill home ownership on the vacant lots. So the city perhaps controls, I think, 150 lots there. And so they're going to do infill housing there to strengthen that home ownership neighborhood.
Which they've done before, many times.
That's right.
You're talking about NRHA.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the downtown public
Yes.
housing?
Yes. Tidewater Gardens is the subject for Choice neighborhood.
Okay.
But then you have the two other sites next to it. There's 1,674
Yeah.
units contiguous around the downtown there.
Mhm.
So that's going to be a $500 million program. And usually, be honest with you, if you look at the list of who's gotten these grants, it's been large cities because it's so expensive to put it together and have the land control and the resources from the school system and from the Parks Department and all the pots of money you need to dip into to redevelop a neighborhood.
And you're saying they've already been awarded the contract?
No, they're a finalist.
They're finalists, okay.
But there are only 4 finalists this year. Usually they make 5 grants. And they name the finalists, and then HUD goes and does a site visit. And then after that, they do a final scoring, just like your procurement that you're talking about. And unless somebody screws up, all 4 of those should get a grant.
A question. Was there an opportunity to do a joint application between Norfolk and Portsmouth on this? Because they have done joint applications on other things. I'm just curious.
So no, because what you have to do is you have to define your neighborhood. You've got to draw a line around your neighborhood, and normally it can't be bigger than 3 miles across.
Okay.
So maybe they, and they'd have to cross the river to get over.
No, they don't count. The river is considered a natural barrier, so that would still be considered contiguous. The river doesn't preclude that.
I learned something today.
Yeah.
All right.
And I know Huntersville is really excited about the possibility of that redevelopment in their communities, because that's an old historic
It sure is.
community, downtown community, and they have been looking for this kind of
Right, and Church Street, which
development.
is, for those of you who don't know, that's the main north-south street. That was the original only road into town, or out of town, and was, it was the Harlem of the South. Is
It
what they
sure
called it,
was.
because of the culture and arts and so forth. So that's Choice. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, this is from Butler Metropolitan Housing Authority. We did a study for them, and we were looking at, these are all their properties. DOFA is date of final availability, so that's kind of the age of the property. That's the poverty rate, their threshold requirements. So it's got to be really poor, and your properties usually meet that. And it has to have a lot of long-term vacancies, right? And then the capital need. So we have to look at the capital need. So those are the first things we look at when we see, does the project have a chance? We do a very preliminary scoring to see how competitive it could be. And that was an example of looking at one portfolio. All right, then the Section 18 with tenant protection vouchers that I mentioned. Those are the levels of capital need you have to meet. Lincoln Park met that. Swanson Home would probably meet that. I've been to Swanson Home. I think it might meet that test. It costs about, well, actually in Suffolk we just had 2 studies done. It costs about $10,000 to have a study done to see if the project meets that level of need for this. And that's better than RAD, because under this you get full FMR vouchers. You get new vouchers, they're fair market rents, or up to 110% of fair market rents, and that's more than you get under RAD.
What is this? Better than red?
Fair market units.
Fair market?
Yeah, this is section 18, that's what it's called, and it's demolition with tenant protection vouchers, run out of the HUD Special Application Center. Yes, it's definitely better than RAD, and that's what you're really using at Lincoln Home, Lincoln Park.
I thought it was Lexington. Is that something
Well, it's
different?
called Lexington now.
The new name is
Okay.
Lexington.
So we're using section 18
Right,
in Lincoln,
yeah,
Now,
which is
we-
better than red
yes,
for the development and what we recover in dollars.
yes,
I just learned something new. Thank you.
okay.
Let's state either Lexington or Lincoln.
Mhm.
And then for RAD, all housing authority projects basically are eligible. And a nice thing about RAD is, and the way folks at the RAD office say, is they're agnostic about how you redevelop your property. So there's kind of you have one test to meet. You do that capital needs assessment, okay, and that shows what the capital needs are over 20 years. And any approach you can use that will cover that capital needs, they'll approve your plan. So what you did for Dale Homes, you're doing a borrowing, town bank involved in it, and 4% tax credits. That's equity, so debt and equity, and some housing authority funds and some deferred developer fee, and I think the city put in some money for infrastructure around there, so you got a lot of things together. But you were able to generate $51,000 a unit for hard construction costs for the initial rehab budget, which is a good number.
And you saying that was for what, the 51,000 generated per unit?
For the hard construction costs. That's
For what?
This is at Dale Homes.
The Dale Homes.
The
okay.
Combined Dale Homes 1
Dale
and 2.
Homes, okay,
5,100, not 50.
51,000.
You said
51,000.
51,000.
Okay, that's
That-
not one here.
So if you look at the development budget for the construction line item with the builder's overhead and profit and general requirements, that adds up to $51,000 per unit. So that's one approach. That's financing. It's a rehab and using 4% tax credits. What you had planned to do at Lincoln was 9% tax credits, which is more than twice as much equity as the 4% program. And you were successful in getting an allocation of 9% tax credits. But we were not able to convince HUD that your site met their standards for new construction. We worked very hard for a very long time to try to make that work.
Did you do an appeal process with them?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. The fair housing was a fair housing issue. HUD doesn't want you to build new construction, public housing replacement in high minority concentration, high poverty census tracts. And there's only 2 exceptions that you can get. One is if it's in a designated, active revitalization area. Now, you had some enterprise zones near there, and
Empowerment zones.
we showed everything. We brought in an undersecretary of HUD to lobby with inside of HUD to try to get it approved, and he said he'd never met such resistance as trying to get that one approved.
So what do, they don't want it in a high minority and
High minority concentration or high poverty.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to.
They're trying to correct the problem of the past where you had the overconcentration of very low income people and minorities.
I get that piece, but redevelopment will do good things for that.
It will.
I mean,
You know, yeah, what we say to them, okay, so in other words, let me see if I got this right. We can take those beat up old units and fix them up, and those people can stay there. You have the same concentration, we haven't fixed that. But you won't let us tear them down and put nice units there so they have nice units to live in. Like, that's right. So anyway, but came up with a solution that's doing better than doing that under RAD with new construction. So by going through Section 18, there's no restriction that the replacement development has to be in a non-minority concentrated area. So we haven't had any pushback on doing Lincoln now under the Section 18.
Wow.
You needed the field office to support it. And so the field office was supportive, and that's it. So we did, it's kind of an end run around it. All right. So I mentioned it's a no new money program, and you might ask me, well, if there's no new money, how can you do something with RAD that you couldn't do before? And these are the things that make it work. So first of all, they remove the declaration of trust that limits what you can do with the property. They replace it with a RAD use agreement that is compatible with what you're doing. Secondly, like I showed you in that other chart, you convert the capital fund to an operating subsidy, and that, you know, nationwide that's $1,500 per unit per year. So, off the top of your head, how much could you borrow at a 30-year loan, 5% interest, if your annual payment was $1,500?
Not a lot.
It's about 27,000. Yeah. So you can, that extra money coming into your net operating income is a good start.
Sure
right?
is.
So that's the second approach you can do. I said there were multiple ways, and HUD was agnostic as to how you did it. So the way you did it at one was, well, agnostic. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't have. They don't have a.
Well, it means don't believe in God. But anyway.
No.
Funny.
Well, agnostic has with a small a, not as an ism, not agnosticism. Just they're neutral.
Neutral.
That work better for you?
Yes.
They're neutral on your solution. So you could do it with 4% credits and a rehab and a borrowing. You can do it with just a borrowing. So if your project had very limited needs, you could, you know, go to a local bank. I won't name any local banks, and get a loan. You know, and maybe you can do 10 or 15,000, the most critical things that you want to do, as long as you can show that 20-year need gets met. You could do the 9% and do new construction, tear down a new construction, as long as you're in RAD, as long as you build it not in a concentrated, minority concentrated or poverty concentrated census tract. Or what you're doing at 5 of your mixed finance projects, we call it a non-financial conversion. There's no borrowing, there's no tax credit equity. But you're getting almost $1,900, actually more than that, of NOI. I think it's ranging from 2,000 to almost 2,000 a year to 2,400 a year that those projects are getting in extra money by converting to RAD. It's not new money, but it's moving the capital funding over. And then showing that that's going into the reserves every year, and that what's going to be in the reserves will be sufficient to take care of all the capital needs for the next 20 years as they come up, as shown in the third-party engineering study, with inflation factored in and all those kinds of things. So that's a non-financial. All right, so but under RAD, you move the capital funds into the operating, and as I said before, you lock in, may not be the greatest level of revenue, but you lock it in, and you get a cost of living adjustment on it, an OCAF, operating cost adjustment factor. And that makes it bankable, right? You get a steady revenue stream. Then you rehab to take care of your backlog of capital needs. And that's, you know, if you look at you got 3 kinds of maintenance. You've got preventive maintenance, responsive maintenance, and no maintenance. Right? No maintenance is the worst, but responsive maintenance is the second most expensive. If you can get back to a like-new property and do preventive maintenance, your maintenance operations expenses go way down. And if you look at your budget, Shannon can vouch for this, utilities and maintenance add to over 50% of your operating expenses. And so if you can address those through rehabbing, take care of your backlog, and then greening the project, so adding water savers and Energy Star appliances and Energy Star windows and reflective colored roofing and solar hot water. We put in, you have it at Dale, you have geothermal. We've used geothermal as a way to reduce operating costs at other projects. You already have it there. So you take care of that backlog, you cut back on your maintenance costs and cut back on your utility costs. And what does that do? Increases your net operating income, right? And you can borrow more. The more you borrow, the more you can leverage with tax credits. So it's a multiplier effect. Now, HUD added last year in April, added a new bell and whistle, which makes me think Swanson might be a decent candidate for this. They call it 75-25 blended rents. So 75% of the units would get the RAD rents, and 25% can get the tenant protection voucher rents, which is your full market rents. And so you blend those two together, and HUD is giving you additional money, but through existing programs. So it's still a no new money program, right? So they're kind of cheating on that a little bit, but we're happy about that. So whereas at Dale, your budget afforded $51,000 per unit in hard construction costs, with this approach, you'd probably be up around $75,000 to $80,000 a unit that you could generate by using this approach. Now, not every project qualifies for this. Sort of like the Section 18 that I talked about. You've got to hit a threshold of not what your backlog of capital needs are, but how high your hard construction cost is. So let's say we're back to our $200,000 unit. 60% of that is $120,000, right? So let's say
60% of what now?
of 200,000. Remember the total
okay.
development
Okay.
cost example we're using.
Okay.
Right. So I said either 57.14 or 62%. I split it in the middle. 60% of that made my math easier. My mind works better that way. 120,000, right? So that's your hard construction cost limit. That's what HUD calls that number. For this opportunity, you only have to hit 60% of that number. So what's 60% of
120?
Of 120?
70, 65, 72.
72.
72.
72. So that's the level of rehab you could do more than that. But your hard construction cost for that $200,000 total development cost. So that's basically the various options. And then, of course, under RAD, they want you to do project-based management, which HUD insists is more cost-effective than centralized. I won't walk you through this, but just an example where I run some numbers and I show, these are all real numbers. In this authority, I look at it at one unit level, so you can think of it like your house, right? So they could afford almost $20,000 in debt over 20 years. Typical housing authority, would you get, almost $100 a year in cash flow? Maybe. And then, so you got $21,000 to spend at that authority over 20 years. If you did RAD, and you could support 17, 18,000, and then you leverage it with tax credits, you got 36,000, plus you're contributing, so you build into each project its own reserves. In this example, $535 a year per unit. So now we're up to 23, 40, 47,000, and you get better cash flow. So you have 51,000 in total sources for your capital improvements.
Per unit.
Per unit, yeah. which you can, so, the notion is then that you take care of the backlog of needs, you're building up your reserves, and, you know, somewhere around year 10, you've got to start spending what's in your reserves, and maybe by year 20, you've almost depleted it all. But you've given it a new life, an extended life. And for those of you who are religious in the room, I like to point out, it's not eternal life. Right? It's not going to last forever. You've got to go to
He went from agnostic to eternal life. Boy, that's a great bridge to cross.
I got anything else to show you? So these are the 4 options that we talked about. The straight conversion, which you're doing on your Hope 6 projects. Debt only, or debt only plus. So if you've got moderate needs, you could do debt only, or debt plus equity, or you didn't have any energy performance contract debt or capital fund finance debt?
So, no.
And then if you have major needs, then you've got to look to either deep reserves you might have, which I think you've depleted most of those, unfortunately. But going to the 9% tax credits, which are competitive, but they're available. And then, so this is showing you the continuum based on the extent of the need of a project and what RAD options are. Yes, sir, Mr.
Could you
Blaine.
tell them, for the 5 properties we're getting ready to do, which one of those 4 models we're using, so they'll be aware of which one of those 4 we're using?
They're using this one.
Okay.
Straight conversion, no debt, no tax credits. They have a term of endearment for it called a rad-o-matic. Like a Vegematic, it's just stick the vegetables in, you grind it, dinner's ready.
And we don't have any restrictions on the resources.
Oh, on the resources you can use?
Yeah.
No, wherever you can get them. One good source is the Affordable Housing Program of the Federal Home Loan Bank. I think Town Bank was the sponsor for 2 grants so far. Dale 1 and Dale 2.
Could you
500.
go back to that slide for a moment, please?
The last slide?
Yes,
I
just
certainly
a
can.
second.
Okay.
And Mr. Blaine, you said you all are doing the no or minimal
We're
rehab
doing the
needs?
first one, that's the
Right
one
there.
we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the one for,
The 5 units, which are the Westbury property,
Seaboard,
Seaboard.
and all the Westbury communities.
And the reason that is because there's very little maintenance.
Those were new construction
New
within the
Yeah.
last 15
okay,
years.
okay.
Yeah.
Minimal needs.
And, yeah, so it's not major capital needs at this time.
Right.
Great decision.
And I'll make sure you can get these slides. And you saw that one already. And I talked about that one. I should have changed the order, right?
You're going backwards.
Yeah. It's the time of day.
Can you get me where I want to go? Next. Okay. So how does it affect the residents? It gives them a better unit usually.
Better life.
Better life. They pay the same with one exception. They pay 30% of their income just like they have under public housing. The exception is that if you have flat renters, anybody know what your flat renters are? Those are people who the authority can set a cap, and so you can have people in public housing who have really good income, and they're still, instead of paying 30% of their income, now they're just paying a fixed amount, which is going to be for some people considerably less than that. RAD does not have flat renters, so if you've got 5 or 6 flat renters at Swanson and you're going to convert that to RAD, then those folks are going to have an increase in their what they pay, but you can phase it in over either 3 years or 5 years, so they make it a little bit easier. But they have many, many more protections than they had under Hope 6. So you cannot rescreen, you cannot add new eligibility requirements, like a lot of older Hope 6 programs said, well, yeah, you moved out and we built all this nice new housing, and now to get back in, you've got to be a full-time student, or you've got to be working full-time, or you need an income of this level. You cannot do that. Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, will not let you do that under RAD. So the RAD program has liberal protection for the residents, which is good, a good thing. The other thing is that under RAD, the residents are entitled to what's called choice mobility. So if a resident decides after they've been in the property for 1 year or 2 years, are you doing PBV, right? Yes. After you finish the project and they're there for a year, if they want to get a tenant-based voucher and go out in the private market, they can move to the top of your Section 8 waiting list. And when vouchers come up, they would be there. So that's kind of a new thing. So what does it do for the authority? You know, I can run the numbers, and we convinced, we worked with your predecessor, Brian. No, not Brian. Your predecessor, Brian, and your predecessor, Scott. They got on board. They saw the numbers. It worked. So the you know, some authorities go, well, we lost our capital fund. How are we going to fund Michael's position? You know, well, we're going to fund Michael's position out of developer fees because we're going to be part of the development entities, and we're going to have better cash flow with the authority coming in, because the authority gets the net operating income from the partnerships. So, in fact, I didn't have time to put it into the table, but I actually have the numbers with me. I looked at the 5 projects that you're going to be closing, and I look at how much is going to be in the reserves at the end of 20 years, how much cash flow is there going to be over 20 years, and there's interest on what goes into the reserves, and those are pretty big numbers. I'm going to make up that chart and I'll send it to Michael and Elisa, and she can, and of course Mr. Bland, and share that all with you. So I think that's all I really had to say. Just a couple recaps. You convert at your current level of subsidy and tenant payments. You can go either with PBV, which is what you're choosing to do, and that's what your housing choice vouchers are, or you can choose to have the vouchers come and your contract come directly from HUD. That's the multifamily Section 8 program. That's called project-based rental assistance. You have a little bit less control that way, but a lot of authorities think that that's the more secure of the 2 Section 8 programs. That Congress has found it easier to, you know, cut into public housing funds and housing choice voucher program, but the PBRA is used in all the private development out there, the regular Section 8 projects, and they got a bigger lobby. You have CLAFA and so forth, but you know, they've got major builders, they've got bankers, they've got the equity world, so they have stronger lobbyists. Told you what the cap was. I mentioned choice mobility. It's a very flexible program, and right now there's about 180,000 voucher units available because HUD, the Congress just lifted the cap from 225 to 455. So I think the next slide says questions. Everything you needed to know about redeveloping public housing in 15 minutes.
Great. We're going to get copies of this with that other information. I'd like to study this a little bit more.
And could you pronounce your name again, your last name?
Jaime Bordenave.
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 Okay.
Garden variety name. Thank you, Mr. Bordenave. Any questions? Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, moving on.
Commissioners, you had the January significant activity report. If you just read through that, and if you have any questions, if you just get back to me with your questions, I can go ahead and respond to that on that. Because you may not have time to read it yet, so if you want to look at it and get back to me with any questions you have, I can go ahead and get those answers back to you.
There was, you had a comment here about the waiting list on page 2. We put an announcement a announcement in the paper about waiting lists. What was that? Is there a connection between that and this?
Yeah,
wait list are you referring to?
You have, on page 2, you have the waiting list could be open at
Dale Home.
Dale for until February 22nd. But there was also an article in the, y'all had to add in the paper about a waiting list. Was this
Same
that one?
list.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dale Home wait list, open that up.
Okay, I did have a quick question. And it had to do with that theft you all had back in December where televisions were stolen because the doors were left unlocked. It was referenced
Yeah, it
in
was
here.
in the notes.
And what I didn't understand is, to me, because when they closed the door, for some reason the door didn't lock. And so during the Christmas holiday, they had theft of televisions. Two. And I saw nothing to indicate that you changed the locks, which to me, I would have wanted to change the locks to deadbolt. So in all conditions, when you close the door, it's locked. And so I wanted that addressed because the only thing it mentioned for corrective action was security.
Is that an item that's on the significant activities
It
report?
was in the
In these, yeah.
Residents Advisory
Yeah.
Board
I had
comments.
printed notes.
It was in the
Okay.
Resident Advisory Board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And that was a concern because, to me, if that could happen once, it could happen again. Unless there's some type of corrective action, which to me, the corrective action would be to install deadbolt locks.
Are you referencing the community center at Phoebus?
Is that where it
Ms. Edie was
was?
bringing up a situation that happened almost a year and a half ago. It started because of the security guards, and those locks and everything had been changed at that point. So she was just actually making a statement in referencing the security guard. She came down and the lock was unlocked.
Because the
So I
TV,
addressed that situation with the security guard supervisor.
So what was the
She was
corrective action?
referencing something that happened a year and a half ago.
But how was it corrected? 'Cause
You
it
changed the
didn't-
locks. You changed the locks.
Did you change to deadbolts? That's what I'm trying to understand.
okay, a couple of things happened. The locks were changed, and also, when we put the other TV in, the TVs are bolted into the wall now. But she was speaking on something that happened about a year and a half ago, but the housing authority already corrected that. The locks
Okay,
were
didn't
changed
come out in
on,
there.
the locks were changed on the doors, as well as when we got the new TV, we bolted those TVs into the wall. So this way, unless you got a sledgehammer, you have to get them out.
Because my obvious concern was, under what I read,
Yeah.
it could happen again, someone forget to lock the door, and then someone goes in and steals the television. So I was looking for something that said the type of locks.
Oh, it was changed about a year and a half
But was it
ago.
just changed to regular locks with a key?
That I will have to get back to you. I'm not
Because
sure
if it was just a
that
regular
part.
lock with a
They
key.
They got in, they threw a brick through the window.
So they threw a
They
brick
were-
through
they
the
didn't come
window?
The side door
I'm sorry,
is a window and a door, so they threw a brick
Uh-huh.
and I locked it. So it wasn't, they didn't come through the front entrance, so they came on the side. But I'll get back to you about what type of lock.
Well,
it
if you can
was.
let Mr. Bland know, because, I mean, it's important, because it's easy, it's human error. If you close the door and you don't push the button in to lock it, you can have the same problem again. But if you use the deadbolt locks, once you close the door, no one's getting back in. So that's why, that caught my attention. I'm glad you saw it.
Oh, yeah, I read it.
Yeah. So thank you.
Mr. Bland?
A couple items. There was a question asked in reference to the signing of checks, and I asked Lisa to kind of talk about this to give you the procedure we have in place for check signing.
So back in, I believe it was in March or April of 2017, we had a review by HUD, and one of the recommendations they made was two recommendations. One was not to have board serve on our procurement panel, as well as have board members sign checks. So we revised our internal control policy and passed a resolution to remove the board from the ability to sign checks.
Now, when they said that, for the board, because in our bylaws, for the chairman of the board, it says negotiating instruments, and a check is an instrument. So can HUD override what our bylaws say?
Well,
I think the bylaw instruments are more reference to contracts and so forth versus the individual day-to-day checks and the day-to-day operations of the authority.
That's not the way I would interpret it, being a former bank examiner.
so the board, actually, we did have at one point in time, for maybe a year or so, where a board chair signed a check.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
HUD frowned upon that, so we reverted back to not having board members sign checks. And so it's just staff that have the ability to sign checks. Mr. Bland, the director of procurement, myself, the director of finance, are the only ones who have the ability to sign checks.
Yeah, and I obviously, Mr. Bland, you're aware I have a concern with that, because I'm not so sure if HUD was frowning totally about that or about commissioners interjecting themselves into the day-to-day operations, and that's not.
It specifically said check signing.
Okay, well, I have a concern with that, because then the question becomes, for some reason, those who are on the accounts to sign the checks for the funds that we as the Housing Authority Board, fiduciary responsibility is to have oversight of that. So, and that, you know, that still becomes my position, and I do recall that Ms. Jackson, the facilitator, spoke to it, and other boards that I've been on. See, this is the thing with this board. The secretary and the treasurer is Mr. Bland. In other boards, you have the option, but the secretary could be Mr. Bland as the executive director, and the treasurer would be someone serving among the commissioners. And then you get your checks and balance. So, you know, I stand with my position. I understand what you're saying, HUD said.
And I think, you know, maybe that works in maybe smaller housing authorities where you have the ED is serving as director of procurement and also director of finance, but we have many levels here, you know, that can make sure that, and Mr. Bland rarely signs checks, so, and it's 2 signatures required on each
That was
check.
my question.
Well,
So
yeah.
2 signatures required, so, you know.
Yeah,
And
and
maybe
it's
smaller
no,
housing authorities,
yeah.
you may find that every now and then,
Yeah.
but usually your larger housing authorities.
Yeah,
you don't see
and
that.
obviously, because of my background, I'm not going to be swayed on taking the position that I take, because we need to have separation of duties. And with all due respect, Mr. Bland, you supervise all those other people who sign on the check with you. So it's a concern to me, and according to the bylaws, it does reference it as instruments, and the instruments that includes check signing. And as I said, if something happens, at the end of the day, if this authority needs to get access to those funds, and because of the way it is now being implemented, we don't have the access, then we have a huge problem. So I appreciate you bringing to my attention what HUD's position is, but my position is unchanged, because you can, as trite as it sounds, you can delegate authority, but you can never delegate responsibility. And at the end of the day, this board is responsible. We are the ones who can be sued individually and collectively. So thank you, you know, for giving me your input.
And so as a result of that, we had, in order for HUD to close out that review, we had to provide them documentation that we did make changes to this. So, and that was provided to them.
And I don't think she was privileged to some previous conversations about check signing. And one of the things that we said was when something needs to be purchased, there's a validation that this is purchased for, and the check matches what the purchase is, and Mr. Bland reviews that process. Is that, we said, we had a conversation about that. So it's not like a check is being written and we don't have a follow-through process
to validate, someone can't just go in and sign a check and it's not attached to a particular item.
Voucher is what you're.
Vouchers, oh, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
a voucher. So that's an additional check and balance,
Well, we have
even
backup.
with two signatures on the
For
check.
every check that we sign, we have the backup. Shannon prepares and provides it to us, and so either myself, Dolores Adams, Shannon, or Mr. Blaine design. So the backup is behind the check.
And the other thing too,
Because we had a big conversation about that
So we have
when you
that.
weren't here.
the other piece too, also, the auditing firm, when they audit us, they also look at our check register too. That's part of their duty when they do their audit every year to send that you guys get a copy of, and her get a copy of. So all of that is in place. And what you have in place now, I can only speak for other housing authorities I've been with. It's been the same procedure like we have here at the Portsmouth Housing Authority. You know, so, and it meet all of the federal requirement that HUD requires. I can only tell you that.
It might be a good idea if we shared the HUD findings from that particular report, because it's pretty specific and speaks pretty intently on what the board should be doing. And again, we're not governed by what happens or what NARO suggests or what our the person that Ms. Jackson was here as a consultant. We're governed by what HUD says.
Right.
And if HUD says don't do it,
Don't do it.
you don't do it.
What
But
the-
that might-
right.
that
In
might
that
be a-
particular review, they came down, you know,
Right.
primarily for the issue with the governance of the board. And so,
At
and
that
costing and
particular
that,
time.
and that, and some other issues of costing to the day-to-day operations of the board.
Yeah,
So
and as I
that was one
said,
of them.
I'll never be swayed on this because I know I'm right on this. Everything that you're talking about in terms of oversight is in-house. And as the board, it's got to have an oversight to our executive director. Because that is how you have separation and internal control policies and procedures being complied with. And at the moment, we're void of that at the most critical level, which is at the chairman level for this authority. And HUD can be wrong. HUD is, you know, they can be wrong and they can be challenged. So that is my position legally.
So
Now, I should say legally. That is my position based on my experience, because at the end of the day, and once again, this is not targeting anyone particular. It's not targeting Mr. Bland. It's not targeting anyone. But what this speaks to is insider abuse and malfeasance in office. And so that is my position on it.
And checking.
But I do thank you for what you're sharing.
And I will say, from where we were when I got on this board and where we have come, which you haven't been privy to, we have taken steps to prevent those things. And I commend you for speaking up, because any additional check and balance that we can do to make our system more effective, I'm okay with that. But I think after they show you or bring the information to us, you'll feel a little more comfortable.
Well, you know, and I certainly look forward to that. But sometimes, putting on my back examiner's hat, sometimes when the final exit interview is held, it's a knee-jerk reaction, and you end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yep.
And so you lose the internal control oversight and compliance. So that's why it's such a concern. And I understand the history that was there before.
I feel the goodness of what you're saying.
But there's a clear difference between the board exercising internal controls and management oversight of the financials, all right? You know, we have the financial reports
Excellent.
given to us, you know, to give us that financial oversight, and are we accountable, and making sure we're accountable to funds. I would just caution how much we get involved as board members in the internal control of the organization.
Right.
Because that's why we hire an auditor, that's why we hire an executive director, to ensure the internal controls are in place. We set the policies, we set the policy of what the internal controls are. But I would really walk it real hard about how much a board member is going to get involved in the day-to-day operations of the organization.
I don't think I ever said anything about getting involved in day-to-day. I'm talking about the line of sight between the chairman of the board and the executive director.
Just,
Yeah.
you mentioned signing of a check. Signing of a check to me is dated.
Daily action.
And that was specifically noted by HUD.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we can challenge HUD all you want, but
Well, I'm
you
going
get
by
in,
what
you
our
get in HUD's
bylaws say.
crosshairs, you can see the effect it's had on the authority for the last 2.5+ years,
Yeah,
and it's not
we're not
pretty.
gonna do that.
Okay, according to PRJ, this commission bylaws, as part of Mr. Bland's duties as the secretary treasurer, it is laid out in black and white. He signs checks. So, in conclusion, I still stand by what I've said, because I'm going by what the bylaws are saying, and I'm going by what internal control practices say. And I'm not talking about those who report to Mr. Bland. I'm talking about the line of sight authority between Mr. Bland and the chairman of our board. Because obviously, I think lessons were learned about day to day. Nobody wants to go and sit at anybody's desk and say, question you this, that. No, that's not me, and I know it's not anybody on this board that would want to do that.
Not me.
That's not what I'm talking about. But thank you again.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson. Any other? Mr. Ball?
Yeah, Mike is gonna come up and talk about where we are with Lincoln.
Oh, good, thank you.
So I'm Michael Pack, you haven't met yet, so.
Okay.
I'm the director of community development here.
Director,
Community.
Sorry?
Director of what?
Community development.
Okay, thank you.
So just to do a quick synopsis of where we are with Lincoln Lexington Park. We have a lot of hurdles on this project. We still have a few hurdles, but we're getting through them. On February 5th, we actually signed an agreement with the contractor for the asbestos remediation to begin demolition. They actually started the next day.
Wow.
So it is currently under asbestos remediation. And we are close to getting our demolition permits. If we drive by, you'll notice the fencing around the site. They are in the process of disconnecting utilities, getting disconnect letters, which hopefully we'll have our last one soon. Once we receive that, we will be able to actually do demolition. We're
Can I
expecting
just
to-
interject just for a second? And I've seen the fencing, it's very nice. And I don't know if maybe you all have signs up further in, but do you think as the project faces Deep Creek Boulevard that you should have no trespassing signs up? Because once they put that fencing, it's like a black mesh-like fencing, which looks very nice. They did a neat job. But I thought to myself, I wondered for the authorities' additional protection, should they have no trespassing signs up?
During the phase 1 construction, during this whole process, really site control is on the contractor. So as far as no trespassing, that's all security, all that falls on the contractor. So
Under who, Breeden?
Under Breeden, correct.
Okay,
But
so-
I can make a suggestion to them for no trespassing signs, but
For
that would fall
Breeden.
under Breeden's.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we are expecting that demolition to be complete. We were hoping for in March. We're probably going to be mid-April because of a couple delays with the utility disconnects.
And the weather.
And the wet, yes, absolutely.
It's kinda wet out here.
Once we complete the demolition, our next step is to complete our subsidy layering review for HUD. Make sure that we're not putting any more than we should be into the project. And once we get that completed, we can then go to closing. And I think we are looking at closing to occur in July. With the expected to start vertical construction shortly thereafter. And I think at this point, based on the time schedule, we're looking at substantial completion by October of next year.
For the demolition.
for the vertical construction.
For the vertical construction?
Correct. And during that process between July, August of this year, when they close, through October of next year, as they complete building, folks putting them into operation and building those units. I mean, it's a pretty aggressive timeline. I think it's possible, but there is the room there, of course, to, I think our credits are, our tax credits are required in potential completion by December 31st, I believe is the date. We got a little bit of room there, hopefully if anything happens, disaster, we'll be back up.
It's 20.
2020.
Yes.
Mhm. And that's pretty much where we're at with it. Any questions on Lexington, anything?
There was $1 million we took from Effingham and moved it to the Lexington project. Are we looking for any more that we're going to need to pull out to support the Lexington effort?
I don't think so, but Mike can probably answer that question, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it was really more about shifting of funds than it was
Right.
pulling from one project. We have, as we talked earlier, about our capital fund program. We're usually working on several years at one time with various expenditure deadlines, and it's a matter of shifting funds around to meet those deadlines and what project needs the most time.
There was, I know the city council, this councilwoman, the capital funds briefing that they did a couple days ago had that $300,000 line on them still in there for supporting Lexington. Did that get pulled back?
That's still in place.
Still in place?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Are we utilizing those funds?
We will utilize them, yes.
Utilizing them? Okay.
Would that be for across the street,
How much was that?
across Deep Creek
300,000.
Boulevard?
I'm
This
sorry,
is
what?
strictly for Lexington.
Yeah.
On the other side, because you know what my concern is. We can't do this project in a vacuum because there is blight right across the street. I understand it's not the project, but right across the street, there is blight. And I can say it because it's my neighborhood, but there is blight. And so for the amount of money that will be put into Lexington, it can't be done without looking across the street on Deep Creek Boulevard.
I would say that that's certainly something we should look at, and or something regarding the actual project itself of Lincoln Lexington, the tax credits, the equity. This money is for that specific project.
Exclusively.
I just had a couple more items. I hadn't finished yet.
Oh, I'm so
I had a
sorry.
couple more items. On the Lexington project, the wait list of who's going to go in there, is it the previous tenants have first, or is there a priority? Is there some sort of prioritization as it goes into Lexington?
Normal relocation, the previous tenants get first to come back, but what happened is data has shown, once they get that, what I call that tenant voucher,
Sure.
they never come back, because that tenant voucher give them more flexibility.
Sure.
And so probably what would happen is, we will open up a wait list for new applicants.
We're going to open up another wait list, or we're going to use a wait list that we presently have?
Well,
A
we,
new wait list.
A new wait list.
new wait list, once we get ready, we're gonna be housing, we will open up
This
a new
is
wait list.
using the new procedures that we voted on a year ago, where, I know we
Yes,
voted,
yes.
the lottery system.
Yeah, with the lottery system. And the purpose of the lottery system would be this way, then you wouldn't have long lines around the building. Prime example was when we opened up the wait list for Dale this time, it was not one line, because they were able to make it electronically, smartphone, computer, whatever, so you didn't have anybody out here saying, I need to get here at 3 o'clock in the morning, be first in line. Because they know it's a lottery system, they could be the last in line, but they may be the first that's drawn in the lottery.
And I'll bring it up with some other items, but I know at the last joint session that we had with council, this board encouraged the council to look at the Lexington project and the
And the
area around
surrounding
Lexington.
The surrounding areas? Okay.
I would ask the executive director, as you put the agenda together for the next joint council,
To revisit.
to revisit this thing and make sure that we have the council's support, as well as the planning commission, what they might be doing around there.
Okay, now, have you finished? I'm sorry, I went to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
My final question, still on Lexington. Are any of those funds for the actual infrastructure roadway on the side where Lexington is?
There's no funds outside, there's no off-site infrastructure.
On the service project, there is none. So it'll be the same
It's gonna be
roads
within the
going
same
in.
Well, within the site, the road will be
Inside.
different. I I misunderstood it. Outside the existing Lincoln
Like
Park
Deep Creek, no.
site,
Nope.
there will be no changes.
Nope.
I'm talking about, Deep Creek going, I'm really talking about Lexington Drive, or Lincoln Park Drive. What's it called name? Lexington Drive. I'm talking about Lexington Drive itself. Would that receive infrastructure
Lexington
improvements?
Drive itself will be demolished and it's going to be replaced with a different infrastructure.
Okay, and I have one more question, because as memory serves me, there's a church over there, right across from it on Lexington Drive. Are they part of the project, or what is that about? I'm sorry, say that again?
No,
The church is on Grand?
Yes.
Okay,
that
okay,
is not part of the project.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, just keep in mind that the grant, our money just for the land that we own, which is Lexington. Anything that's outside of that border, we can't touch.
So what about, what's the 300,000 from the city? What's your
That's
plan
just
for that?
capital improvement.
That goes into helping us.
Capital improvements.
It was part of the application process, so it's already included in the, we started breaking out the equity, the debt, that's factored in those calculations for tax credit purposes and all that.
And like I said, I don't have any eggs in the basket, but the old St. Mark Church that burned to the ground, that is now clear property right there from Deep Creek that has a for sale sign on it. So at some point, I don't know how we're going to bring those pieces together, but I'm saying you're going to have to bring those pieces into this. Nobody's going to want to have a quality of life in the project, and as soon as you turn on the Deep Creek, it's a different story.
I think that's something that Mr. Bland pointed out earlier, having site control, something of the city and the housing authority as a whole want to get together. That is something that would be, for some sort of future uses.
Okay.
But that would probably require some sort of
Holistic.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael, appreciate it.
And one of the 4 big things that we talked about at our city council retreat in February was neighborhoods. So we want to take a look at neighborhoods and you know, beautification, and so that's, you know, I don't know how we tackle it now, but you know, we want to take a look at, you know, all of that. So that could be something that we refocus some energy into. Downtown revitalization is one sector that we're working with our Old Town, downtown, redeveloping our waterfront, but neighborhoods could be anywhere. So that's one of our 4 big things that we'll be adopting next Monday at our meeting.
At your meeting, okay. Is it safe to say that this project is similar to what happened in the 80s for Ghent in Norfolk? Mr. Bland or Michael, are you able to speak to that? It was the same. I mean, it wasn't ever public housing, but it ended up a blighted area that was torn down. And obviously, houses rebuilt that served the medical professionals, which came under criticism. But I was just wondering, will it be similar to that in the I'm not talking about not being able to move back in, but in the holistic point of the holistic word.
Yeah.
But with the point of being able to gather the project, and then the surrounding area will be a positive influence to the project.
I would say to that any type of revitalization is always a catalyst. To expect it to become another Ghent, and I can't say to that. That's something that
It's
naturally
before your
occurs,
time.
and naturally occurs, but it is a catalyst that to spark some sort of revitalization.
Okay, one other item, hand this out to you guys. This is, what I'm handing you is what I call our public housing assessment score. Now, only one, okay, we got our score was a 77 out of 100, but what happened was, you also see what I highlighted was, that the designated status was substandard physically. Now, if you look at the last page, what HUD does is they know that we got the demolition grant to take down Lincoln, but because when they did the inspection, all the family wasn't out of the units, so they had to kind of do a physical inspection. I have reached out to the field office to see if we can get this 34 removed for Lincoln, because Lincoln is coming down, but it's just that HUD system in there. But when you look at it, like I said, our total score is 77, but on the physical side, they gave us a substandard, and mainly because of Lincoln. And I have reached out to HUD to say, look, guys, you gave us the money to demolish. Now you're coming in to score it.
And demolish us.
Yeah, so I just want to make you aware of this, but it don't, it's nothing to be alarmed about because we know Lincoln is coming down.
So, so if I'm hearing you correctly, there's still 34 families there?
No, we got a score of 34.
Okay, how many families are still in Lincoln?
And phase one is none.
None,
We
but
have
fa-
maybe-
And phase two, how many?
We have maybe about 50.
55.
Oh, 50, and what we're going to do is we're going to give those 50 vouchers, we give an issue vouchers, those 50 to get to move
Issue
out.
up to half of them.
Already, yeah.
And when will the rest of them receive their vouchers?
Within the next month.
Right. The goal is to have them all out before school start in September, so they'll know where the kids
But
will be,
after
what
school
school.
starts,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
I mean,
some of them will be
starts.
moving now, but the goal is to have everybody out before September.
So really looking for them after this school year ends, or
Correct.
before the next school
Before we have it
year
fully
ends.
empty. But I just want to give you this, because you look at the other schools on here, you got, you see other schools, very good. You just got this one property that made, that gave us that substandard physical. And so, and it was that Lincoln property, and we know what's going on at Lincoln.
Just because we've talked a little bit about financial responsibility, I think this is a great indicator on this, that we scored 25 out of 25.
Correct.
On this particular report, so.
Right.
I think kudos to our staff and so forth for doing what we're supposed to do, and staying within HUD's good graces.
Right. And hard to have a way to look at these things, that's what I'm saying, is so, management-wise, the housing authority is doing great, we're meeting all of our targets. Like I'm saying, you got the 21 out of 40 for your physical, and you say 25 out of 25 on your financial. You can't do no better than that on your financial.
That's awesome.
And that is all I have.
Well, thank you for this information.
All right. Commissioners, any further comments?
Just had a couple, three. There's a meeting next Tuesday that the council's going to be briefing about the waterfront project. Are we in play with that, Ed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're attending, or?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
The WODA project?
We have, you want to tell them where we're on that?
Well, I think I may have shared with you at the last meeting that we're in the process of transferring that property at 818 County back to the city. So they will no longer, if they decide to go, and apply for credits this year, they will have to work with the city's economic development department. So that's what's going on.
And the last one, last comment, again, in preparation for the joint session that we're going to do with council, in addition to the Lexington Pace, the area around for the infrastructure, I brought up the last board meeting, I know the very first session we had, we talked about safety in our public housing areas and support from police. We've had a couple high-profile incidences in our public housing units, and just to let them know again, we really need the support. This nickel isn't just on PRHA to ensure our housing is safe. We just need a full court press. Just keep on reminding a full court press, because we've got some real bad things happening. And the only way to stop real bad things happening is a lot of visibility, a lot of presence of the police. I know they talked about how they were undermanned, got it, all right? But, it's just one of those things that, as we're tearing down units, it just allows people who don't belong there to be there. And we just don't want anybody to get hurt. All right? Okay. Putting up no trespassing signs is a great idea, but signing can stop somebody who wants to get in there. Okay.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Thanks.
Also, we just got these back from one of the attorneys. These are some old pictures. If you want to look at these, we're going to pass these on to the African American museum. So you may want to look at these, some pictures going way back to the 50s, I think, maybe some 40s.
Neighborhood called Lakersville, for those of you.
Oh,
Yeah, so you may want, but we're going to going to the to the museum.
We'll get on some of this and look at it.
Yeah, just settlement, just settlement.
Right, so those.
When are you planning to, are you planning to make copies before you transfer it, or are you just gonna transfer it over?
Once you guys look at, we're going to, let's.
They're out of here.
We're going to transfer.
Oh, that's a goal, that's a goal of mine. I'm sorry?
We'll leave them here so you can look at them before we transfer.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
I was gonna say, it might be easy just to keep a copy. It's always good to keep a copy.
Put some up on the website. Might be just a couple of them, you know. See where we were and see where we're going.
This is, I was trying to look at it, but I definitely want to look at them.
Will you finish, Bruce? Are you finished?
Can't even look at
Yes,
those.
sir. Okay. I had a couple of comments. A big hooray to Mr. Bland and the other staff members that attended the call dad. Boom! And in the community project, I can't look at it right now. Was a big success. We had it at the neighborhood community center, and we're planning to do more there, smack dab in the community. So thank you, Mr. Blaine, and thank you, PRHA, for your support for that. That was a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, it would be lost in her truth.
Yes, just tell them, thank you. And Mr. Bland did the opening, and it was spectacular. And we just want to say thank you, and we're going to continue that program. That program will continue to grow. I think, Bruce, you worked with that in the past, too. Also, I want to say that I know you're a great, wonderful team, and sometimes some of my questions is not about your excellent work. I understand that need for the tools to improve the properties and so forth and so on. But it's not questioning you and what you're doing whatsoever. It's just processing for myself so I can feel comfortable with the decisions that I'm making over in Swanson Homes. And it's, I want to do everything we can for the people that live there without questions. But I also want to do, make sure that, well, enough said about that. So thank you so very much. And teamwork, call that Section 8. And I'm excited about the fact that we're taking some challenges and doing some new things, because I really like what the guy said. If we continue to do what we're doing, that's not progress. And I live here, and I want this city to be spectacular for every citizen that lives in our city, and I believe it can be. I have no hesitations or reservations about seeing that. And I'm thankful. I'm not an agnostic. I'm thankful to be in this position to make a big difference, a significant difference in the lives of the people we're here to serve. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm on that, so you
Any
want
other
this?
comments?
Yes, I did want to see an update at the next meeting on the Greater Portsmouth Development Corporation. It's because I understand it is inactive status now, is that correct, Mr. Bland?
Well, it's active.
Yes, is it possible to get an update from you on it at the next meeting?
Few things I can tell you. Most of it is in confidential at this point that I can't talk about.
So you could you talk about it in closed, or you couldn't even talk about it?
When you have closed session with one organization, you can't come out and discuss with another organization.
Okay, and that must speak to my email earlier today, but okay. Because obviously since PRHA, and when it says PRHA, to me that pulls in the board.
The board number.
But you're saying that it doesn't pull in the board on that?
No, because it's
Because you're the ex officio, is that correct?
somewhat, yes. The chair and myself serve on that, along with the mayor and the city manager and
GPDC.
David Tench. Yeah. It's
The chair of our board serves on it.
Yes, yeah.
But we're not allowed to have an update from our chair, is that what you're saying?
Well, some things he can tell you, but a lot of stuff we talk about is confidential. It's not even ready to be publicized. Just like and when we go into closed session, talk about some stuff, we can't come out and then talk about it publicly. Right.
Right.
So the bulk of the stuff that we're talking about is still, confidential.
I think, let me help.
No.
No, because I have a similar concern.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
They're not gonna sit us by each other next time, you know
We're gonna
that.
stay beside each other. No, I do have a similar concern.
But I think Ross Morgan had asked for an update on GPDC
Oh,
kind
had
of
you?
quarterly or something,
Did you
so
get it?
just
Yeah, whatever
whatever
I
they're
can give.
able to share
Whatever I
should
can
be
give.
shared.
Yeah, I will.
Right.
Whatever I can share, I will.
I
Yes.
think, I think it's okay to talk since it's all now public. The last update we received on GPDC was a couple months ago,
Right.
Correct.
prior to the announcement of the potential waterfront development along Holiday Inn site.
Right.
Okay, so
I think a lot of
you
what
asked
what
for-
Mr. Bland's referring to are possible negotiations on the sale and/or other development that they're not ready to publicize who those partners are. 'Cause I think even in our session there, we didn't know all the facts at that
Right.
point because it hadn't been made public.
Yeah.
Well, did you get it in closed session when he gave the update, or was it in open
That
session?
one, I believe it
It's in
was.
closed
It was closed.
It's
It
in
was
closed, so, I mean, I'm fine with that, as long as along this path, we get an update, and it can certainly be enclosed. I would prefer it be enclosed, but since we are the PRHA board, and our chairman serves on that board, we should be included in that update in a closed session.
Right.
On a frequent basis as necessary.
Yeah.
Just so you know, too, I did ask Davey after our planning session
Uh-huh.
to talk about that.
For this meeting.
Well, yeah, I guess I didn't think it, but just to kind of give some background on GPDC
Yeah,
in
'cause it's
general,
important.
because there's still a lot of, I think, misinformation
Right.
over what that entity is, and I think it's just the waterfront announcement. What a great thing! You can see what happens when the city and private
That's
enterprise
correct.
and the authority come together. It's a good thing. But I just want to let you know that.
See, we're
Right.
on the same page.
And how I like to support that is, as a board, we do have secrets, but we aren't supposed to have secrets from the board members. And I understand that this organization may have things that they need to keep in confidence, but just like you said, there are contracts. We can have that information because we are bonded just like anybody else to hold these things in trust. And I don't, so I agree with you. I did miss one thing. I had it in my package here. I had some questions about our cooperation agreement between us and the city, but
Well, you
I
gonna
don't know
do
if we
that?
can talk that out now.
Maybe we can put on the next agenda,
But we do need to talk about that, because I had
the
some.
1940.
Yeah, the cooperation agreement dated July 1940 between us and the city, because I was wondering if some of these things in this cooperation agreement. Yes, it is. It's a signed contract, because certain things that this contract says between us and the city involves finances. Did you get to read this?
Oh, yeah, I read it.
Yes.
And limits on finances for us and what we do back to the city. So I think this is a pretty significant document that was mailed out to us, and we do need to discuss it, which is a very helpful thing. I mean, it sets clear limits.
Well, at this point, should we have the Attorney James to, in the future agenda, brief us on it?
So what we'll do, we'll table that to the next session and give them time to prepare
Yeah.
for any questions that you all have or concerns about that, because we don't want to throw it out there and they're not prepared for that.
Exactly,
Okay?
I agree.
So we'll table that to the next
Yes.
session.
And perhaps also get the city attorney here
Okay.
to talk with us. Because this is part of our big collaboration piece. And this contract makes that collaboration and cooperation process vital. You
That's
do
a
need,
cooperation agreement?
yeah, this is called the cooperation agreement with the city of Portsmouth.
Okay. He gonna get me a copy.
This is,
Okay.
And we appreciate, having this document, because this is a historical document.
Right.
This should go into the library also.
so, that's right.
But this is important because we want to make sure that
I'm sorry you didn't get us a bunch.
we're getting all that we should get.
But we just got it.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, any
Monday.
further comments? All right, I have no comments. We're gonna open the floor for the public speakers, and we're gonna allow them 5 minutes to speak. How many public speakers?
Yeah, his,
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lawrence O's. I reside at 1452 Tally Circle, original owner of that property. I am also the president of the Westbury Improvement Association. And I'd simply like to read you 2 letters. First one was dated July 13, 2018, to Mr. David L. Bland, Executive Director, Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, 1361 South Street, Portsmouth. And these letters were mailed. It was a pleasure talking to you at the last Monday afternoon. Thank you for agreeing to speak to the Westbury Improvement Association on August 7, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held at Mount Calvary Baptist Church in 901 Thomas Circle, Portsmouth, Virginia. You should park in the rear parking lot and use the door to the left. I saw Dr. Reuben Washington last night, and he requested that you put this meeting on his calendar, and he would also attend. When I was in your office on Monday, and before I spoke to you, I requested a copy of the document that outlines the respective responsibilities of PRHA and the Westbury residents for the Westbury development. Please make this one of your discussion topics. The second topic we would ask that you discuss is the low-interest home improvement loan available to original Westbury homeowners. If you're going to use handouts, we expect 25 to 30 meeting participants. Sincerely, Lawrence O's. And the date is July 13. That was last year.
Yes.
The second letter addressed to Mr. Davy Smith, Chair, Board of Commissioners, Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority, 3116 South Street, Portsmouth, October 18, 2018. Dear Mr. Smith, prior to your Board of Commissioners meeting on July 9, 2018, I had completed a request for a copy of any agreement responsibility document between the PRHA and Westbury homeowners. I also requested information on low-interest loan available to Westbury homeowners. I will address these requests in the following paragraphs. On July 9, I requested or asked Mr. David L. Bland, Executive Director, if he would speak to the Westbury residents at the Westbury Improvement Association meeting on August 7, 2018. Please refer to the confirmation letter to Mr. Bland dated July 13, 2018. This confirmation is included as an attachment. That refers to this letter. I called Mr. Bland a couple of days before the meeting to confirm his attendance and to see if he needed anything. I was completely shocked when I was met with the comment, "I told you I was coming." As of October 18, 2018, I have not received a reply to my document request. So I'll change that to February 21st, 2019. I have not received a reply to my document request. At the August 7, 2018 meeting with the Westbury Improvement Association, Mr. Bland stated that there was no relationship between the Westbury homeowners and the PRHA. On the subject of the low-interest loans, Mr. Bland stated that he had already given that information to the Westbury Civic League. What that has to do with the Westbury Improvement Association escapes me. Mr. Bland did say that he will send me the information. As of October 18, 2018, I have not received a reply to my document request. As of today, I have not received information. It is the goal of the Westbury Improvement Association to forge productive relationships with the City of Portsmouth, departments, and community organizations. I hope we can develop an effective relationship with the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority. Please refer to the following attachments. And the attachments were the first meeting information going out to the Westbury residents and what we plan to accomplish. So my question is, why do I have to be here to read these letters to you? Now,
5 minutes, sir. Your
the
time
question
has
is still
expired.
on the table.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So are we gonna have a response?
I was
Mr. Bland?
gonna address Mr. Bland.
Okay.
Mr. Bland, you want to respond to any of that?
I did go to the meeting, and at that particular meeting I went to, I think it was, what, 3 people there at your meeting, when I went to the church for that particular meeting, and I did mail the flyer to you that talked about the side program. And that was the only thing that I mailed to you. Now, if you didn't get it, you never once got back to me and said, yeah, but I do know I mailed it, because it was the same flyer we gave to
The paint program.
Yeah, the paint program. I did mail that to you. I mean, I'm surprised that you didn't get it because you gave me your address and I did mail it to you. And you know, I came to your meeting and I did tell you that no, we have no relationship with homeowners there on any written contract with them for anything that I'm aware of.
No,
Right.
we don't.
Yeah. And I said that to you at the particular meeting.
And that's what I said to you.
Yeah.
So my question is, what about the loan information?
Well, I sent you that information. If you didn't get it, I can send it to you again. Because I did put it in the mail to you, because I told you, I sent you the same information I gave to the Civic Association, which was just a flyer on how they could make an application if they needed it for the paint
Program is the only program that we have available.
Right, because we did have one news announcement in reference to that.
Is that's the one we did?
Correct.
We had the movie cameras, the
Yes.
press,
Yeah, that was
and
the one we
everything?
did with the press release.
And he hasn't gotten the information.
It was just
Is
a
it
flyer.
still available, or is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So let's just make sure.
It's still to help
Sure.
the homeowners improve the exterior painting of their homes.
Home
that's all it
in
was.
Westbury.
In Westbury.
And you're the original
The
owner of the
loan
property?
is-
Yes.
Okay.
They have
Along for painting?
Original, but it has to be for the original
Home
purchaser
buyer.
of the property. It can't be refinanced to somebody else. It has to be the original
property
person.
owner.
Yeah. Let's get that to him.
And I guess I
A
have
grant.
question, just
No, they said
my
loan.
clarification. So there are 2 civic leagues out Westbury, because I thought it was only one.
Yeah, that's
Two.
what's
Yeah,
confusing
So
me.
it's 2 separate, why is it 2 separate civic leagues in one community?
Because we
Well,
have
that's-
different focuses.
That's what they.
That's-
Okay, so it's 2 separate ones.
But that's-
Okay, I think that was what I was thinking.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
So there's no
Okay.
loan program, there's just
Right.
only a
Right.
paint
It's
program.
okay.
It's a loan for
Just paint
payment.
program. yeah.
It's a loan for painting?
Yes, for
Or
those
just-
that need help painting the exterior of their home.
Okay.
Low
So the goal
interest.
was to help, you know, as
Low
time, went, you
interest.
know, paint fades, and we wanted to make sure that we keep the
Okay.
community up and looking
Right.
nice. So that was to incentivize some of the home buyers with helping them, you know,
But they
paint
would
their
have
homes.
to borrow money
Yes.
for the paint itself,
Yes.
and they would do
Low.
the actual human sweat. Am I saying that right?
Or they can hire.
They can hire someone,
yes.
but you gotta borrow money
Right, 'cause-
from them, from you all for the paint,
Right,
in essence,
right, for the work to be
for the
done.
work.
Yes.
We televised that and everything.
Yeah, it was an article, I think.
All right, Ms. Wilson, we're
We apologize.
no problem.
Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome,
it.
thank you.
We didn't know it was 2.
All right, we're going to Resolution 2019-09, resolution to of intent to meet in closed
I
meeting.
make the motion we move.
I didn't hear, what was that?
Resolution-
Point of clarity.
Resolution 2019-09, resolution of intent to meet in closed meeting. Whereas Virginia Freedom of Information Act provides that the Board of Commissioners can meet in a closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body as set forth in section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia as amended. Legal counsel will provide a briefing on a potential litigation property damage claim. Now therefore be it resolved that in compliance with the Virginia Code of Information Act and the above referenced sections of the Virginia Code, the Board of Commissioners shall convene in a closed meeting on February 21st, 2019 for the purpose of litigation consultation, A7.
I make a motion we move into closed meeting 2019-09.
All right?
Second.
Wake up, y'all.
All
Okay.
right. Commissioners,
I thought I was going.
10, resolution of certification of the closed meeting of February 21st, 2019 pursuant to section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of Virginia law, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Commissioners in the closed meeting. Chair's in need of a motion.
I move that we close this meeting, resolution 2019. Now, mine says 9. What does yours
You're
say?
on the wrong one.
Okay, which one is it? 10? Resolution 10.
All right?
Second.
All right, ready?
all right. Commissioner Jiggets,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chapman.
Yes. All right, this meeting is adjourned.